When my daughter laughed at her husband calling me an old witch, I stared into the eyes of the child I'd raised and saw nothing but a stranger. 3 days later, I was clutching a lottery ticket worth $5 million. That's when I realized life isn't just a wheel of fortune. It's a stage where the final act belongs to those who wait. If you're watching this, be sure to subscribe and comment if you've ever had family turn their backs on you when you needed them most. The Christmas lights twinkled against the frosted window panes of my daughter Victoria's mansion. I sat in my 15-year-old sedan outside, staring at the extravagant holiday display that adorned their sprawling estate. Imported Norwegian spruce trees lined the circular driveway, each wrapped in thousands of lights that probably cost more than my monthly pension. I checked my reflection in the rearview mirror and dabbed at the corners of my eyes. At 67, I had earned every line on my face, every silver strand in my hair. Tonight would be different, I told myself. Tonight would be better than last year. My phone buzzed with a text from Victoria. "Mom, where are you?" Everyone's waiting. Everyone. As if I were the inconsiderate one. As if I hadn't spent the past hour trying to calm my nerves enough to face another night of subtle humiliation. I gather my purse, the modestly wrapped presents I'd spent 3 months saving for, and the homemade apple pie that Victoria would inevitably relegate to the kitchen counter while showcasing her caterer's elaborate dessert spread. With a deep breath, I stepped out into the December chill. The front door swung open before I could ring the bell. There stood Marcus, my son-in-law of 8 years, investment banker extraordinaire and self-proclaimed financial genius. His custom suit probably cost more than my car. "Eleanor, finally gracing us with your presence." His voice boomed through the marble foyer. He pulled me into a bear hug that reeked of expensive cologne and insincerity. "We were beginning to think you'd gotten lost." Again, a pointed reference to Thanksgiving, when I'd taken a wrong turn and arrived 40 minutes late. As if I didn't know it was a dig at my aging memory. "The traffic was terrible," I lied, smiling through gritted teeth. "Well, you're here now. That's what counts." He took the pie from my hands with 2 fingers, as if it might contaminate him. "I'll just put this somewhere." I followed him into the great room where 20 or so guests mingled, champagne flutes in hand. The air smelled of pine, cinnamon, and money. So much money. Victoria spotted me and waved, not bothering to interrupt her conversation with a woman I didn't recognize. My granddaughters, Lily and Rose, ages 10 and 8, were the only ones who seemed genuinely happy to see me. They broke away from the children's table and ran toward me. "Grandma." Lily threw her arms around my waist. "Did you bring presents?" "Lily." Victoria's sharp voice cut through the chatter. "That's rude. Apologize to Grandma." I placed my hand on Lily's shoulder. "It's fine, Victoria. And yes, my darling, I brought presents. But they're for after dinner." Rose tugged at my sleeve. "Mommy said you might not come because of your hip." I blinked in confusion. My hip was fine. Well, I wouldn't miss Christmas with my favorite girls. Victoria finally approached, air-kissing my cheek. "Mother, I'm so glad you made it. I was worried about you driving in the dark." She lowered her voice, "Especially after what the doctor said about your eyes." Another fabrication. My last eye exam had been perfectly normal, but it fit Victoria's narrative, her aging mother, gradually deteriorating, requiring her daughter's generosity and patience. "My eyes are just fine, dear. Perfect for seeing what's right in front of me." If she caught my meaning, she didn't show it. Instead, she guided me toward the dining room. "We're just about to sit down. I've put you between Aunt Meredith and Uncle Paul." The furthest seats from her and Marcus, naturally. Dinner was a showcase of excess. A 20-pound heritage turkey, sides I couldn't pronounce, wine that Marcus made sure everyone knew had been flown in from some exclusive vineyard in France. I picked at my food, feeling increasingly out of place among these people who measured worth in square footage and investment portfolios. Conversation flowed around me like water around a stone. Victoria's friends discussed vacation homes and private schools. Marcus held court at the head of the table, regaling everyone with stories of his business triumphs. Eleanor, he called out suddenly, did Victoria tell you about our new venture in Singapore? The profits are simply obscene. He grinned. Makes that monthly stipend we send you seem like pocket change, doesn't it? The table went quiet. Every eye turned to me. The $1,000 a month was a source of constant humiliation. After my husband died 5 years ago, leaving me with unexpected medical debts and a half-paid mortgage, Victoria and Marcus had offered financial assistance. What started as a genuine lifeline quickly transformed into a chain around my neck, a constant reminder of my dependence. It's very generous, I replied, keeping my voice steady. Though I never asked for it. Marcus laughed too loudly. Nonsense. We're family. Besides, what kind of son-in-law would I be if I let my wife's mother struggle? It's nothing, really. A drop in the bucket for us. Victoria nodded, her diamond earrings catching the light. Mother has always been too proud, Marcus. She'd rather work until she drops than accept help graciously. I accepted help. I corrected her. I never agreed to accept condescension. A tense silence fell over the table. Marcus cleared his throat and raised his glass. A toast to family, even the difficult ones. Nervous laughter rippled through the guests. Victoria shot me a warning look, one I'd grown familiar with over the years. It said, "Don't make a scene. Don't embarrass us. Remember who holds the purse strings." After dinner, we moved to the living room for gift exchanges. The children received tablets and designer clothes. Victoria unwrapped a blue box from Marcus that contained a diamond bracelet that must have cost more than my house. I watched as everyone exclaimed over each extravagant gift, feeling the weight of my modest offerings grow heavier by my side. When it was time for my presents to be opened, Victoria managed to make even that into a performance. Now, girls, remember what we talked about. Grandma doesn't have the resources we do, so whatever she's brought, we show gratitude. My face burned as I handed over the carefully wrapped packages. For Lily, a handmade quilt I'd spent months creating, each square representing a family memory. For Rose, a collection of classic books that had belonged to her mother as a child. The girls were polite but underwhelmed. In a room filled with electronics and expensive toys, my gifts seemed antiquated, out of touch. "Thank you, Grandma," Lily said, setting the quilt aside to return to her new tablet. "These are very nice," Rose added, barely glancing at the books. Victoria patted my hand. "It's the thought that counts, Mother. The girls know that." As the evening wore on, I found myself retreating further into silence. Marcus continued to drink, his voice growing louder, his jokes more pointed. Several times, I caught him and Victoria exchanging glances when they thought I wasn't looking amused, superior, as if I were some quaint relic they had to tolerate. Then came the moment that would change everything. Marcus had gathered everyone for one final toast before dessert. Standing in the center of the room, champagne sloshing dangerously close to the rim of his glass, he called me forward. "Eleanor, come up here. I want everyone to see the woman who raised our beautiful Victoria." Reluctantly, I joined him, aware of the stares, the polite smiles hiding curiosity or pity. "To Eleanor," Marcus announced, slinging an arm heavily around my shoulders. "The most frugal woman I know. My wife gets her business sense from her father, thank God, but she gets her backbone from this lady right here." A few chuckles from the audience. 8 years I've known this woman, and I've never seen her spend a dime. She didn't have to. Isn't that right, Eleanor? "I believe in living within my means," I replied evenly. He laughed, pulling me closer in what looked like affection, but felt like restraint. "Living within your means. That's precious. Tell me, how's that working out on a fixed income these days?" More laughter, less restrained now. Victoria was smiling, not at me but at her friends, as if we were all in on some joke at my expense. Marcus lowered his voice, but intentionally not enough. "Enjoying the $1,000 a month, old witch?" The room went silent. Someone gasped. Victoria's smile faltered, but she didn't defend me. Instead, she laughed, a short, nervous titter that cut deeper than any knife. In that moment, something broke inside me. Not my spirit, but the chains of obligation and family duty that had kept me silent for years. I felt a strange calm wash over me, the kind that comes when you have nothing left to lose. I smiled. Then I laughed, a full, throaty laugh that startled everyone, including Marcus. His arm fell away from my shoulders. "You know what's funny, Marcus?" My voice was clear, steadier than it had been all night. "I just won $5 million in the lottery." The silence that followed was absolute. Victoria's champagne glass froze halfway to her lips. Marcus's smile collapsed like a punctured balloon. "What did you say?" Victoria finally whispered. $5 million, I repeated. "Last week's Powerball. I found out yesterday." Marcus recovered first, his face morphing into an eager grin. "Eleanor, that's incredible. Why didn't you tell us right away?" "I was waiting for the right moment," I replied, looking him directly in the eye. This seemed perfect. Victoria hurried to my side, suddenly solicitous. "Mom, that's wonderful news. We need to talk about this, about how to handle such a large sum." "Marcus can help, of course. He knows all about." "I've already spoken with a financial advisor," I interrupted. "And a lawyer. Everything's being handled." The party disintegrated shortly after my announcement. Guests made awkward excuses to leave, sensing the family drama unfolding. Victoria and Marcus tried repeatedly to corner me, their questions becoming increasingly pointed. How much was the lump sum after taxes? Had I signed the ticket? Who was this financial advisor? I answered vaguely, watching their frustration mount. For the first time in years, I held power in this relationship, and we all knew it. As I prepared to leave, Victoria followed me to the door, her earlier hostility replaced by cloying concern. "Mom, you can't drive home now. It's late, and you must be overwhelmed. Stay the night. We'll talk in the morning about all this." "I'm perfectly capable of driving myself home, Victoria. I've been doing it for 45 years. But $5 million. Do you have any idea what kind of target that puts on your back? You need protection advice." I looked at my daughter, really looked at her. The little girl who once made me construction paper hearts was now a woman calculating her advantage in every situation, even with her own mother. "What I need," I said quietly, "is respect. Something money apparently can't buy in this house." I left her standing in the doorway, mouth agape. As I drove away, I caught a glimpse of Marcus in my rearview mirror, rushing out to join his wife, his face a mask of barely contained greed. The next morning, my phone began ringing at 7 a.m. sharp.
Victoria.
I let it go to voicemail. By noon, I had 17 missed calls from Victoria, from Marcus, from Victoria's brother Michael, who lived in Colorado, and with whom I spoke maybe twice a year. Word had traveled fast. At 2 p.m., there was a knock at my door. I peered through the peephole to see Victoria standing on my porch, shifting nervously from foot to foot. I considered not answering, but decided against extending this game any longer than necessary. "Mother," she burst in as soon as I opened the door, wrapping me in a hug that felt like a straitjacket. "I've been worried sick. Why haven't you answered your phone?" I needed some peace and quiet to think. She guided me to my own couch as if I were an invalid, sitting close beside me, her hand on mine. "Of course you did. It's a lot to process. That's why we're here to help." The door opened again, and Marcus strode in, followed by a thin man in a charcoal suit carrying a leather portfolio. "Eleanor," Marcus beamed. "Hope you don't mind, but I brought along Jeremy Fulton, top financial advisor at my firm, the best of the best." Jeremy nodded at me with the practiced smile of someone who'd built a career on managing wealthy clients. "Mrs. Caldwell, it's a pleasure. Quite a windfall you've come into." I remained seated, making no move to shake his outstretched hand. "I already have a financial advisor, as I mentioned last night." Marcus waved this away. "Some local bank manager, I'm sure. Jeremy here handles 9-figure portfolios. Trust me, you need someone who understands real wealth management." "Marcus has explained your situation. Jeremy continued smoothly. Given your age and lack of investment experience, we've prepared some preliminary recommendations to protect your assets. My age. My lack of experience. Always the subtle reminders of my perceived inadequacies. And what might those recommendations be? I asked, though I already knew. Marcus interjected before Jeremy could answer. We're thinking a family trust. Jeremy will handle the investments, I'll oversee the structure, and we'll ensure you have a comfortable monthly allowance, significantly more than what we've been providing, of course. Of course, I echoed. Victoria squeezed my hand. It just makes sense, Mom. You won't have to worry about anything. No more budgeting, no more of those awful part-time jobs. You can just enjoy your golden years. While they continued outlining their plan for my money, I observed them with new clarity. The eager light in Marcus's eyes. The way Victoria kept mentioning things she knew I couldn't afford, cruises, vacation homes, designer clothes, as if dangling them before me. They weren't here out of concern. They were here to secure their claim before I could slip away. And what about my current financial advisor? I asked when they finally paused for breath. Marcus frowned. Who is this person anyway? Some strip mall tax preparer? You haven't even told us their name. Patricia Abernathy of Winthrop, Schuster, and Hayes. I enjoyed watching the recognition dawn on his face. My lottery win hadn't been the only secret I'd kept. For the past 3 years, I'd been taking night classes in financial planning, preparing for a part-time career in retirement. Patricia had been my mentor and now my ally. Winthrop, that's one of the top firms in the state, Marcus stammered. How do you even know them? There's a lot you don't know about me, Marcus. Both of you. I stood up. Now, I appreciate your concern, but I've made my decisions. Patricia has already helped me establish a trust, invest a portion conservatively, and set aside donations for several causes important to me. Victoria's face flushed. You've done what? Without consulting us? Mother, that's incredibly irresponsible. On the contrary, it was the most responsible choice I could make. I moved toward the door, opening it pointedly. Now, if you'll excuse me, I have an appointment this afternoon. Jeremy, sensing the shift in power, gathered his unused materials and made a hasty exit. Marcus remained seated, his expression thunderous. You're making a huge mistake, Eleanor. You have no idea what vultures are out there waiting to take advantage of someone like you. Someone like me, I repeated. And what am I like, exactly? You know what I mean. Elderly, living alone, suddenly wealthy. You're the perfect target. I laughed softly. The irony of that statement coming from you is truly something. Victoria stood, her composure cracking. This isn't fair. After everything we've done for you. What exactly have you done for me, Victoria? Besides remind me constantly of my dependence? Besides make me feel like a burden rather than your mother? We gave you money every month. We included you in family gatherings. You gave me money with strings attached. You included me in gatherings where I was the punchline. You treated me like a charity case, not family. Marcus finally rose, putting his arm around Victoria's trembling shoulders. You're being dramatic and ungrateful. Victoria has always looked out for you, even when you made it difficult. Difficult, I nodded. Yes, I suppose maintaining my dignity, despite your best efforts to strip it away, was difficult. Now, please leave. Both of you. Victoria's eyes filled with tears that I wasn't entirely convinced were genuine. Mom, don't do this. We're your family. Your only family. The statement was meant to wound, to remind me of my isolation, my dependence on their goodwill. Instead, it strengthened my resolve. Then, perhaps it's time I found a new definition of family. After they left, Marcus practically dragging Victoria out as she alternated between tears and threats, I sat in the sudden quiet of my modest living room. For the first time in years, I felt truly in control of my life. The sensation was both exhilarating and terrifying. My phone buzzed with a text from Patricia. Meeting confirmed with trust attorney tomorrow at 10 a.m. Are you ready? I typed back. More ready than I've ever been. The next 2 weeks passed in a blur of meetings, paperwork, and carefully considered decisions. Patricia and her team guided me through the process of securing my newfound wealth with patience and respect, something I'd nearly forgotten was possible. Victoria and Marcus alternated between aggressive demands and plaintive appeals. One day, it would be threats of legal action, claiming I wasn't of sound mind to manage such wealth. The next, tearful voicemails about family loyalty and second chances. My resolve never wavered. With each document I signed, each decision I made, I reclaimed pieces of myself that had been eroded by years of subtle degradation. Then came New Year's Eve, and everything changed again. I had planned a quiet evening at home, perhaps a glass of champagne at midnight, a symbolic toast to my new beginning. Instead, at 7 p.m., my doorbell rang. I opened it to find Michael, my son, standing on my porch with a duffel bag and a hesitant smile. "Hey, Mom," he said, as if it hadn't been 3 years since we'd seen each other in person.
Surprise?
Unlike Victoria, Michael had forged his own path far from home. After college, he'd moved to Colorado, working as an environmental consultant. Our relationship had grown distant not through animosity, but through the gentle drift of separate lives. He called on birthdays and Christmas, sent the occasional email, but we'd long ago lost the close bond we once shared. "Michael," I managed, stunned. "What are you doing here?" He shifted uncomfortably. Victoria called. "She's
Concerned about you.
said you'd come into some money and weren't thinking clearly." He quickly added, her words, not mine. Of course. Victoria would deploy every weapon in her arsenal, including my son. I stepped back, letting him enter, my guard immediately up. "And you flew across the country because your sister is concerned?" Michael set down his bag, running a hand through his hair, a nervous gesture he'd had since childhood. "Honestly, I came because it didn't sound like the mother I know. Victoria said you were cutting off family, acting paranoid, making rash financial decisions. And you believed her?" I believed something must be wrong for her to call me 5 times in one day. He looked around my living room, taking in the familiar surroundings. But now that I'm here, I'm guessing her version might be a bit biased. I studied my son's face, searching for signs of the same greed I'd seen in Victoria's. Instead, I found only genuine confusion and concern. "I won the lottery," I said simply. $5 million. Victoria and Marcus immediately tried to take control of it, just as they've tried to control every aspect of my life for years. I refused. That's the whole story. Michael blinked, then let out a low whistle.
Wow.
Okay, that's not what Victoria described at all. He hesitated. 5 million, huh? That's incredible, Mom. Congratulations. Thank you. I waited for the questions about amounts, for the subtle hints about his own financial needs, for the advice about what I should do with the money. Instead, he asked, "Are you okay?" That's a lot to deal with all at once. Something in his genuine concern broke through the walls I'd been building. Before I could stop myself, I was telling him everything. The years of humiliation, the Christmas party incident, the subsequent battle for control of my winnings. Words poured out of me like water through a broken dam, all the hurt and anger I'd suppressed for so long. When I finally fell silent, Michael sat beside me on the couch, his expression a mixture of shock and remorse. "Mom, I had no idea it was like that. Why didn't you ever say anything? Would you have believed me?" Victoria has always been the persuasive one, the one who could spin any story to her advantage. "I would have listened," he said quietly. "I should have been around more to see it for myself." We talked through the night, rebuilding bridges I thought had long since washed away. Michael shared his own complicated relationship with his sister, how he'd distanced himself partly because of her increasingly materialistic values. By midnight, when we finally remembered to toast the new year, something fundamental had shifted between us. "So what happens now?" Michael asked as we clinked glasses. "With Victoria and Marcus, I mean." "I don't know," I admitted. "Part of me wants to cut them off completely. But she's still my daughter, despite everything. And my nieces? How are Lily and Rose handling all this?" I felt a pang of guilt. In the chaos of the past weeks, I'd had little contact with my granddaughters. Victoria had effectively erected a barrier between us, screening my calls, returning my small gifts. Victoria is keeping them away from me. I think she's afraid I'll tell them the truth about how their parents have treated me. Michael's jaw tightened. That's not right. They adore you. They're children caught in adult conflicts. I won't use them as pawns, even if Victoria does. He nodded, then asked the question I'd been dreading. And the money? What are you planning to do with it? I tensed, waiting for the shift, for the mask to fall and reveal another grasping relative. Instead, Michael raised his hands in surrender. Totally none of my business. I'm just curious. $5 million is life-changing. Cautiously, I outlined the plans Patricia had helped me make. The secure investments, the modest house I planned to buy, the charitable foundation I was establishing to help older adults re-entering the workforce. I've also set up educational trusts for Lily and Rose, I added. That money is untouchable by Victoria or Marcus. The girls will have access when they're ready for college. Michael listened without interruption, nodding occasionally. When I finished, he smiled. Sounds like you've thought of everything. I'm impressed. But not included, I noted, watching his reaction carefully. He looked genuinely startled. Mom, I didn't come here for your money. I came because I was worried about you. I believe you, I said, surprising myself with the truth of it. But I did set aside something for you too. Not a fortune, but enough to help with that eco-lodge you've been dreaming about starting. His eyes widened.
How did you know about that?
I've barely told anyone. You mentioned it in your Christmas email last year. Just one line, but I could tell how much it meant to you. He shook his head, visibly moved. I can't accept that. It's your money, your fresh start. It's my choice, I corrected him. And I choose to invest in the dreams of the son who flew across the country because he was worried about his mother, not her bank account. Michael stayed for 3 days, a buffer against Victoria's increasingly desperate attempts to re-establish control. He answered her calls so I wouldn't have to, deflecting her manipulations with a directness I envied. Before he left, he promised to visit more regularly, to be a more present son regardless of the physical distance between us. After he was gone, I felt both stronger and more vulnerable. Stronger in my resolve, in my plan moving forward. Vulnerable because I'd allowed myself to hope for reconciliation, for a genuine family connection again. That hope was tested sooner than I expected. 1 week after Michael's departure, I received a formal-looking envelope in the mail. Inside was a notice of a petition for conservatorship, filed by Victoria Harrington, née Caldwell, and Marcus Harrington, citing concerns about my mental capacity to manage my financial affairs following a sudden windfall that has led to erratic and concerning behavior. They were trying to legally take control of my money and, by extension, my life. The initial shock gave way to a cold, clear anger. So this was how far they would go. This was the true face of their concern for me. I called Patricia immediately. They've filed for conservatorship, I told her, my voice surprisingly steady. I was afraid they might try something like this, she replied. Don't worry, Eleanor. This is a desperate move that will backfire spectacularly. I'm calling our attorney right now. By that evening, I had a legal team assembled, not just Patricia's corporate attorney, but a specialist in elder law and another in contested conservatorship. They assured me that Victoria and Marcus's petitions stood little chance, given my documented mental competence and the transparent timing of their concern following my lottery win. Still, said Marjorie Kane, the elder law specialist, we should prepare for an ugly fight. They'll try to paint you as confused, vulnerable, possibly even developing dementia. They'll use your age against you, twist any eccentricity or independent decision into evidence of diminished capacity. Let them try, I said, surprising myself with my ferocity. I've spent years being underestimated by my daughter and her husband. It's about time I used that to my advantage. The next day, I received a text from an unknown number. Grandma, it's Lily. Mom took my phone, but I'm using Rose's tablet. Are you really crazy? Mom says you're sick and need help.
I'm scared.
My heart broke reading those words. Victoria was poisoning my grandchildren against me, using them as emotional leverage. I texted back carefully, "I'm perfectly fine, sweetheart. Sometimes adults disagree about things, but you don't need to be scared. I love you and Rose very much, and nothing will change that." Minutes later, another text came through. "Mom says we can't see you anymore because you might kidnap us." That's not true, is it? Before I could respond, a third message appeared. "This is Victoria. Stop communicating with my daughter immediately. Any further contact will be documented and added to our case against you." I showed the exchange to my lawyers, who added it to the growing file of evidence of Victoria and Marcus's manipulative tactics. The legal battle was escalating rapidly, but I was no longer the easy target they had expected. What they didn't know, what they couldn't possibly suspect, was that I had been preparing for this confrontation long before the lottery ticket ever came into my possession. Because there was one more secret I had kept from everyone, including Michael. One truth that would turn the tables completely when finally revealed. There never was a lottery ticket. There was no $5 million. There was only a woman who had finally had enough of being treated like a burden and who had crafted the perfect trap for those who had underestimated her for the last time. The moment I decided to fabricate the lottery win, I knew it was more than a lie. It was a test. A test my daughter and son-in-law failed spectacularly. As the conservatorship papers landed on my table, I remembered how my late husband always said, "The best revenge is making them dig their own graves." By the end of that week, I was holding the shovel, watching Victoria and Marcus furiously digging. If you're still watching, subscribe now and comment if you've ever set a trap for someone who deserved it. My lawyer, Marjorie Kane, stared at me across her polished mahogany desk, her expression cycling through shock, confusion, and finally, reluctant admiration. "Let me get this straight," she said slowly. "There is no lottery win. No $5 million. You invented the entire story to what? Teach your daughter and son-in-law a lesson?" I smoothed an invisible wrinkle from my skirt. "That sounds rather petty when you put it that way. I prefer to think of it as a controlled experiment in human nature." Marjorie removed her glasses, pinching the bridge of her nose. "Mrs. Caldwell, Eleanor, you do realize they've filed a legal petition for conservatorship? They're claiming you're mentally incompetent. This experiment could backfire catastrophically." "On the contrary," I replied calmly. "Their petition is based entirely on my supposed erratic behavior following a sudden windfall. A windfall that doesn't exist. Once that's revealed, they'll have no case, just a very public record of their greed and desperation to control an inheritance that was never coming their way." Marjorie studied me with new eyes. I could almost see her reevaluating me, not as a victimized elderly woman, but as someone with unexpected depths. Perhaps even someone dangerous. "And what about your son, Michael? Is he part of this experiment?" I felt a twinge of guilt.
No.
Michael believes what I told him, though I was careful not to discuss specific numbers or show him any falsified documents. I didn't want him legally compromised. But emotionally compromised is fine? Her tone was sharp. "I'll tell him the truth when this is over. Michael and I have begun rebuilding our relationship. I believe it will withstand this revelation." She leaned back, fingers steepled beneath her chin. "And your endgame here? What exactly do you hope to accomplish?" It was a fair question, one I'd asked myself repeatedly over the sleepless nights since Christmas. What did I want? Revenge? Justice? Some public vindication? "I want my dignity back," I said finally. "I want Victoria to see, truly see, what she's become. And I want to live the remainder of my life on my terms, without her condescension or Marcus's mockery." Marjorie was silent for a long moment. Then she sighed, replacing her glasses. "Well, while your methods are unorthodox, you haven't actually broken any laws. You haven't defrauded anyone or signed any false documents. You've simply told a lie that others chose to believe." "Precisely. That said, we need to be strategic about how and when we reveal the truth. The conservatorship hearing is scheduled for 3 weeks from now. If we play this wrong, the judge could still rule against you, lottery or no lottery? I nodded, feeling the weight of the risk I'd taken. What do you suggest? First, we gather evidence of your mental competence. Medical evaluations, cognitive assessments, financial records showing your responsible management of your actual assets. Second, we document the pattern of controlling behavior from Victoria and Marcus, the timing of their concern conveniently coinciding with your supposed windfall, their history of financial leverage over you. And the reveal? A slow smile spread across Marjorie's face, the smile of a predator spotting weakness. We let them dig themselves deeper first. Let Victoria and Marcus build their entire case around the lottery win. Let them expose their motivations in the most public way possible. Then and only then do we pull the rug out. For the first time since entering her office, I felt a flicker of doubt. What if the judge sees my deception as evidence that I am, in fact, unstable? That's why we need to be prepared to show why you felt this deception was necessary. Not as a random act of malice, but as a protective measure after years of emotional abuse. We'll need to document the history, the subtle humiliations, the financial control, the isolation tactics. I thought of the journals I'd kept for the past 5 years, recording every barbed comment, every backhanded compliment, every moment of manufactured dependency. I have documentation. Extensive documentation. Good. We'll also need witnesses. People who've observed how Victoria and Marcus treat you. My mind flashed to Christmas dinner. Their friends won't testify against them. But your friends might. Neighbors. Community members. Anyone who's witnessed their behavior toward you over the years. I thought of Martha from my book club, who had once commented on how Victoria spoke to me like a misbehaving child. Of Reverend Thomas, who had seen Marcus physically steer me away from a church fundraising committee, claiming I was too overwhelmed to participate. Small moments, seemingly insignificant at the time, that formed a pattern when viewed collectively. I'll make a list, I promised. As I left Marjorie's office, stepping into the crisp January air, I felt simultaneously lighter and heavier. The plan was in motion, the trap baited and set. Yet the stakes were enormous. If I failed, I could lose not just my autonomy, but any chance of reconciliation with my family. My phone buzzed in my purse.
Victoria.
Again.
Her 5th call today.
I let it go to voicemail, as I had every call since the conservatorship papers arrived. Instead of heading home, I drove to the small cafe where I'd arranged to meet Patricia Abernathy. Unlike Marjorie, Patricia had known the truth from the beginning. In fact, she'd been instrumental in creating the illusion. The cafe was nearly empty when I arrived, just a few college students hunched over laptops in the corner. Patricia waved from a table by the window, 2 steaming mugs already waiting. "You look better than I expected," she said as I sat down. "Given the circumstances, I've discovered that righteous anger is quite energizing." I wrapped my hands around the warm mug. Marjorie Kane has agreed to continue representing me, even knowing the truth. Patricia nodded approvingly. She's the best. How did she take the revelation? Better than expected. She thinks we can still win, maybe even more decisively, because of it. And Michael? Have you told him yet? I stared into my tea, avoiding her gaze. Not yet. The timing hasn't been right. Patricia's silence spoke volumes. She had argued from the beginning that involving Michael in the deception, even passively, was a mistake. "The longer you wait, the worse it will be," she said finally. "I know, but he's only just come back into my life. I can't risk losing him again." "And you think he'll take it better after he's been deceived for weeks? After he's defended you to Victoria based on a lie?" Put that way, my reasoning sounded flimsy even to my own ears. "I'll tell him.
Soon.
But first, we need to discuss how to handle the financial aspects of this charade. The court will want to see records, proof of my supposed winnings." Patricia pulled a folder from her briefcase. "Already taken care of. Since no actual financial transactions have occurred, we're not falsifying any legal documents. I've prepared a statement explaining that you have consulted with me, but have not yet deposited or invested any lottery winnings pending resolution of family concerns." Will that be enough? It should be. The The burden of proof is on Victoria and Marcus to demonstrate your incapacity, not on you to prove the lottery win. And speaking of Victoria and Marcus, she hesitated. What is it? They came to my office yesterday. Marcus tried to intimidate me into discussing your financial details. When that failed, he implied that you had promised to invest with him once the legal misunderstanding was resolved. A cold fury washed over me. And Victoria played the concerned daughter. Said you'd been acting erratically even before the lottery win. Mentioned memory lapses, paranoia, mood swings. All lies, obviously, but convincing lies, delivered with tears and apparent sincerity. Your daughter missed her calling as an actress, Eleanor. I thought of Victoria as a child, how she could turn her tears on and off like a faucet to get what she wanted. Some things never changed. What did you tell them? That client confidentiality prevented me from discussing your affairs, and that any concerns about your competence should be addressed through proper legal channels. Patricia's smile was razor-sharp. I also mentioned that I'd be happy to testify about our interactions, including their visit, in any court proceeding. They won't back down easily, I warned. Victoria never has. When she wants something, she pursues it relentlessly. Like mother, like daughter, Patricia observed dryly. I acknowledged the truth of this with a nod. Victoria had inherited my determination, if not my ethics. It was one of many complicated feelings I'd been sorting through. Pride in the strength I'd passed on, despair at how it had been corrupted. As I left the cafe, I checked my phone again. 2 more missed calls from Victoria, and now one from Marcus as well. But it was the text message that caught my attention. Mom, this has gone far enough. We're coming over tonight at 7. Be there. Not a request, a command. The presumption of it, the entitled certainty that I would comply, crystallized something in me. Tonight would happen on my terms, not theirs. I called Marjorie immediately. Victoria and Marcus are coming to my house tonight. I need a witness. I'll be there, she promised without hesitation. And Eleanor? Remember, anything they say can and will be used against them. Let them talk. Let them reveal themselves. By 6:30, Marjorie was settled in my guest bedroom, door slightly ajar, legal pad ready. At precisely 7, the doorbell rang. I took a deep breath, adjusted my cardigan, and opened the door with a placid smile. Victoria burst in first, Marcus close behind. My daughter had dressed for battle in a sleek pantsuit and heels that clicked aggressively against my hardwood floors. Marcus wore what I thought of as his business intimidation attire. Custom suit, power tie, cufflinks that caught the light with every gesture. Mother, Victoria began without preamble, this has gone on long enough. We need to talk about what you're doing. What am I doing exactly? I asked, gesturing for them to sit. Neither did. You're tearing this family apart with your delusions. Victoria's voice rose. First this lottery fantasy, then shutting us out, now legal action? Do you have any idea what this is doing to the girls? To all of us. I didn't initiate legal action, Victoria. You did. The conservatorship petition was your choice. Marcus stepped forward, his tone conciliatory but condescending. Eleanor, we filed that petition to protect you. You haven't been yourself since this lottery business started. We're worried. Worried about me, or worried about access to money you believe I have? Victoria's face flushed. That is exactly the kind of paranoid thinking we're concerned about. You've always been suspicious of Marcus, always resented our success, and now you're spinning conspiracy theories about us trying to steal from you. Are they theories? I kept my voice steady. You've never shown this level of concern for my well-being before. For years, I've lived on a fixed income, struggled to make ends meet, worked part-time jobs well past retirement age. Your concern manifested as a monthly stipend delivered with regular reminders of my dependency. Now, suddenly, when you believe I have millions, you're filing legal papers to control my finances for my own good? Marcus's facade cracked slightly. That's not fair. We've always helped you financially. You've always controlled me financially. I corrected. There's a difference. Victoria paced the room, her agitation growing. This is pointless. You're twisting everything, just like you always do. Playing the victim when we're trying to help. What kind of help are you offering, exactly? To manage my money? Make my decisions? Determine where I live, what I do? If necessary, yes.
Victoria snapped.
You're almost 70, Mom. You live alone in this outdated house. You have no experience with substantial wealth. You're vulnerable. I see. I folded my hands in my lap. And how would you manage this wealth on my behalf? Marcus jumped in, eager now. We've already discussed this with top financial advisors. A portion would be invested conservatively to generate income for your care. Another portion in higher yield opportunities that I personally oversee. The remainder would be placed in trust for future generations, primarily Lily and Rose, of course. Of course, I echoed. And what portion would be allocated for my actual use? My desires? My dreams?
Victoria gawped dismissively.
You'd have a generous monthly allowance. Much more than you have now. You could finally move into that assisted living community we looked at last year. The community I had expressly stated I had no interest in. The one Victoria had chosen because it was conveniently located 5 minutes from her house, making it easier to monitor me. So, essentially, I summarized, you would control all major decisions about my money, place me where you want me, and allow me an allowance at your discretion. You're making it sound sinister, Marcus protested. This is about protection, not control. Protection from what? From whom? From yourself.
Victoria exploded.
From your own terrible judgment. From whatever influence has made you turn against your family like this. I studied my daughter, trying to see past the entitled anger to the child I had raised. Was she so blinded by greed that she believed her own lies? Or was there still some part of her that recognized the cruelty of what she was doing? Victoria, I said softly, do you remember what you said when your father died? At the hospital, when it was just the two of us? She faltered, caught off guard by the change in direction.
What?
No, that was 5 years ago. You said, it's just us now, Mom. We have to take care of each other. Do you remember that? Something flickered across her face. Recognition. Perhaps even shame. It disappeared almost instantly. That has nothing to do with this. It has everything to do with this. I believed you. I thought we would face the future together, as equals, as family. Instead, you and Marcus systematically reduced me to a dependent, an obligation, a problem to be managed. That's not true. We've done everything for you, except treat me with respect. I stood, suddenly tired of the circular argument. I think you should leave now. We'll resolve this in court, as you've chosen. Marcus stepped toward me, his imposing height meant to intimidate. This isn't over, Eleanor. Think carefully about the path you're taking. You're risking everything, your relationship with Victoria, with your grandchildren. Are you threatening to keep my grandchildren from me, Marcus? Because that would certainly be interesting to document for the judge. He backed down immediately, hands raised in mock surrender. No threat. Just stating facts. This kind of family conflict is hard on children. Then perhaps you should have considered that before filing legal papers to declare their grandmother incompetent. Victoria gathered her purse, her movements sharp with anger. You've changed, Mom. The lottery changed you. As they moved toward the door, I delivered the parting shot I'd been holding back. No, Victoria. The lottery revealed us all. That's what you find so uncomfortable. After they left, Marjorie emerged from the guest room, legal pad filled with notes. That, she said with professional admiration, was masterful. You never lost your composure, never made a single threatening or irrational statement, while they revealed their true intentions repeatedly. Will it be enough? Combined with everything else we're gathering? I think so. But, Eleanor, she hesitated. What is it? The longer this goes on, the more destructive the eventual fallout will be. Are you prepared for what happens when the truth comes out? Not just legally, but personally? It was the question I'd been avoiding since Christmas night. What happens after the vindication, after the momentary triumph? What happens to my relationship with Victoria, with my grandchildren? I don't know, I admitted. But I know I can't continue as things were. Sometimes you have to break something completely before you can rebuild it properly. Marjorie nodded, though her eyes remained troubled. Just remember, courts prefer resolution to destruction. If there's any chance of salvaging this situation before the hearing. There isn't, I interrupted firmly. Victoria and Marcus have shown who they are. Repeatedly. The only language they understand is power. Until the balance shifts completely, nothing will change. After Marjorie left, I sat alone in my living room, surrounded by the modest furnishings that had witnessed decades of my life. The faded armchair where I'd nursed Victoria through childhood fevers. The coffee table where Michael had learned to walk, his tiny hands gripping the edge for balance. The photographs chronicling birthdays, graduations, weddings, moments when we had been a real family. My phone buzzed with a text from Michael. Mom, Victoria called me crying. Says you're refusing all help and acting irrationally. What's going on? Should I come back? The moment of truth had arrived sooner than I'd anticipated. I couldn't lie to Michael again. Couldn't deepen the deception. But a text message was no way to reveal such a significant truth. I called him instead. Mom. He answered on the first ring. Are you okay?
Victoria sounds desperate. I'm fine, Michael.
But there's something I need to tell you, and it's not going to be easy to hear. What is it? Is it your health? The money? The money, I confirmed. Michael, there is no lottery win. There never was. The silence that followed seemed to stretch into infinity. When he finally spoke, his voice was barely audible. What are you saying? I explained everything. The Christmas humiliation, the spontaneous lie, how Victoria and Marcus had reacted exactly as I'd anticipated, revealing their true characters in their rush to control wealth that didn't exist. Another long silence. Michael, please say something. I don't know what to say, Mom.
I'm processing.
His voice was carefully neutral. So you lied. To all of us. Including me. Yes. There was no point in equivocating. I did.
Why?
What was the point? It started as a moment of desperate self-defense. But it became something else, a test, a mirror held up to show who people really are when they think you have something they want. And I failed this test too? By believing you? By coming to support you?
No.
I clutched the phone tighter.
No, Michael. You were the only one who passed.
You came because you were concerned about me, not the money. You never once asked for anything. Except you still lied to me. The hurt in his voice was unmistakable. You let me believe this fantasy. You let me defend you to Victoria based on a lie. You made me part of this manipulation without my consent. I was wrong, I admitted. I should have told you the truth when you arrived. I was afraid. Afraid of what? Afraid you'd react exactly as you are now. Afraid I'd lose you again. Another pause, this one heavy with unspoken feelings. I need time to think about this, Mom. It's a lot to take in. I understand.
Do you?
Because from where I'm standing, it seems like you've been playing chess with all of us as pieces. Even me. Especially me. That wasn't my intention. But even as I said it, I recognized the partial truth in his accusation. I had manipulated the situation, had used the fabricated lottery win as a catalyst to force confrontations and revelations that might otherwise have remained buried. Intentions matter less than actions, Mom.
You taught me that.
His voice softened slightly. Look, I'm not cutting you off. I just need some space to process this. And you need to decide what happens next, because this can't go on indefinitely. After we hung up, I felt the full weight of what I'd set in motion. Michael's hurt was just the beginning. When the truth emerged in court, the damage to my relationship with Victoria might be irreparable. My grandchildren might grow up believing their grandmother was a manipulative liar. The very community I'd built around me might view me with suspicion. Was it worth it? The question haunted me as I prepared for bed, moving through my nightly routine with mechanical precision. As I brushed my teeth, I caught my reflection in the bathroom mirror. The silver hair I'd stopped dyeing years ago, the lines that mapped a lifetime of expressions, the eyes that had witnessed so much joy and sorrow. The face of a woman who had finally decided her dignity was worth fighting for, whatever the cost. Yes, I decided. It was worth it. Not for revenge, but for truth. For the chance, however slim, that on the other side of this painful revelation might lie something authentic. If not reconciliation, then at least understanding. I had just settled into bed when my phone chimed with a text message. Unknown number. I opened it, expecting perhaps another message from Lily via Rose's tablet. Instead, I read, "I know the truth about the lottery. We should talk. Meet me at Riverside Park tomorrow, noon. Come alone, or everyone finds out."
No signature.
No context. Just a threat hanging in the digital ether. Someone new. Someone outside the small circle I'd confided in. And that someone was now attempting to blackmail me. I barely slept that night, my mind racing through possibilities. Who could know? Who would threaten me this way? I considered ignoring the message, but the thought of someone else controlling the narrative, revealing the truth before I was ready, was intolerable. By morning, I had made my decision. I would meet this mysterious blackmailer, assess the threat, determine how to neutralize it. I called Marjorie, explaining the situation. "Don't go alone," she advised immediately. "This could be dangerous. If I bring someone, they might not approach me. I need to know who this is, what they want. At least let me wait nearby, out of sight, but close enough to intervene if necessary." I agreed to this compromise, though I suspected the threat was not physical, but informational. Someone seeking to profit from my deception, not harm me bodily. Riverside Park was busy that day, mothers with strollers navigating the paths, elderly couples on their daily constitutional, joggers weaving through the crowd. I chose a bench with clear sight lines in all directions, positioned myself to observe approaches, and waited. Marjorie, dressed inconspicuously in jeans and a windbreaker, pretended to read a book on a bench 50 yards away. At exactly noon, a figure in a charcoal peacoat sat beside me. I turned, expecting a stranger, perhaps someone from Victoria and Marcus's social circle who had somehow uncovered my secret. Instead, I found myself looking into the familiar face of Jeremy Fulton, the financial advisor Marcus had brought to my home. "Mrs. Caldwell," he greeted me pleasantly, as if this were a chance encounter. "Lovely day, isn't it? You sent the text. Straight to business. I appreciate that." He smiled, though it didn't reach his eyes. "Yes, I sent the message. I thought we should discuss your situation privately." "And what situation would that be?" "Your non-existent lottery win." He kept his voice low, though there was no one close enough to overhear. A clever ruse, I must say, effective in exposing true intentions. My heart raced, but I kept my expression neutral. "What makes you think there was no lottery win?" "Please, Mrs. Caldwell, let's not insult each other's intelligence. I've been in wealth management for 20 years. I know when someone is suddenly wealthy and when someone is play-acting. And yet Marcus believed it. You let him believe it. Marcus Harrington sees what he wants to see. It's what makes him successful in business and a fool in personal matters." Jeremy adjusted his scarf against the January chill. "When he brought me to your home that day, I knew within minutes that something wasn't right. The way you spoke about the money, your supposed investments, the details didn't align. So you've known all along. Why reveal yourself now? Why the cryptic message? Because things have escalated beyond a family squabble. Court proceedings, conservatorship petitions. It's becoming quite serious." He turned to face me directly, and I find myself in a rather awkward position. "How so?" "Marcus is not just a colleague. He's a significant client of our firm. His business represents millions in management fees annually. If I were to testify truthfully about my observations that day, about my professional assessment of your mental competence, well, let's just say it would not align with the narrative Marcus is constructing." Understanding dawned. "You're being asked to testify against me, to support their petition." "Precisely. Marcus has requested, quite forcefully, that I provide an expert opinion regarding your capacity to manage substantial wealth. An opinion that, were I to give it honestly, would devastate his case." "And so you've come to warn me?" out of the goodness of your heart. My skepticism was evident. Jeremy laughed softly. Hardly. I've come to propose a mutually beneficial arrangement. Blackmail, you mean? Such an ugly word. I prefer to think of it as strategic alignment of interests. He gazed out over the park, his profile sharp against the winter sky. I can provide testimony that destroys Marcus and Victoria's case. Evidence that they attempted to manipulate professional opinions, that they discussed their plans to control your supposed winnings in my presence. In exchange for what? A modest consideration. Say, $50,000. I couldn't help it, I laughed. The absurdity of being blackmailed over money I didn't have was almost poetic. Jeremy frowned. I failed to see the humor, Mrs. Caldwell. Mr. Fulton, I don't have $5 million. I don't have $50,000. The lottery win was a fabrication, as you've cleverly deduced. Perhaps. But you do have assets. Your home, retirement accounts, the ability to secure loans. My amusement evaporated. You expect me to liquidate my actual assets to pay you for testimony about my fictional assets? I expect you to recognize the value of what I'm offering. Without my testimony, Victoria and Marcus may well succeed. They have resources, connections, a compelling narrative about an elderly mother who has become irrational, paranoid. The courts tend to err on the side of caution in such cases. He was right, and we both knew it. Despite Marjorie's confidence, despite our evidence and preparation, conservatorship cases often favored those with greater resources and social standing. Victoria and Marcus had both. And if I refuse, then I regretfully inform Marcus of my suspicions about your lottery claim. I testify as requested, supporting the petition with professional observations about inconsistencies in your financial statements, apparent confusion about investment terms, erratic decision-making. All lies. All subjective professional assessments, he corrected smoothly. Impossible to disprove and damaging enough to sway a cautious judge. I studied him, this elegant predator who had sensed vulnerability and moved in for the kill. You've misjudged the situation, Mr. Fulton. And me. Have I?
Yes.
Because you assume I'm still playing the same game as Victoria and Marcus, a game of deception, manipulation, and control. I'm not. I stood, signaling the end of our conversation. I welcome your testimony, whatever it may be. Truth has a way of emerging, regardless of who tries to obscure it. He rose as well, visibly annoyed by my refusal. You're making a serious mistake, Mrs. Caldwell. I'm offering you a guaranteed win. At the cost of becoming exactly what my daughter believes me to be, someone who would lie, manipulate, and corrupt others for personal gain. I shook my head. No, thank you. As I walked away, he called after me. I'll give you 48 hours to reconsider. After that, I call Marcus. I didn't turn back, didn't acknowledge the threat. Instead, I headed toward Marjorie, who had abandoned all pretense of reading and was watching our interaction with evident concern. What happened? She asked as I approached. Who is that? That, I said with grim satisfaction, is our unexpected ace in the hole. Back at Marjorie's office, I recounted the entire conversation. Rather than sharing my optimism, she grew increasingly alarmed. This is a serious complication, Eleanor. If he tells Marcus your lottery win is fictional before we're ready to reveal it ourselves, the entire strategy collapses. Or it evolves, I countered. Think about it, if Marcus and Victoria learn the truth now, what will they do? Drop the conservatorship petition? Unlikely. They're too committed, too publicly invested in the narrative of my mental decline. They might amend their petition, focus on the lottery fabrication itself as evidence of your instability, which would require admitting they pursued legal action specifically because they thought I had money, not out of genuine concern for my well-being. I smiled thinly. Let them try to explain that to a judge. Marjorie considered this, tapping her pen against her legal pad. It's risky, very risky, but you might be right. Their options would be limited. Either withdraw the petition and tacitly admit their motivations were financial, or proceed and risk exposing those same motivations explicitly. And either way, Jeremy Fulton becomes a liability to them. A witness who can testify that he recognized the deception immediately while they were blinded by greed. Unless he accepts their payment for favorable testimony instead of yours for unfavorable testimony, he's already demonstrated his ethical flexibility. It was a valid concern. Jeremy Fulton had revealed himself as someone who operated purely from self-interest. If Marcus offered more than my refusal cost him, his allegiance would shift accordingly. Then we need to ensure his testimony benefits him more than any payment Marcus could offer, I said, an idea forming. What if we could guarantee his professional advancement without any financial transaction that could later be used against him? Marjorie's eyes narrowed. What are you thinking? Patricia Abernathy. Winthrop, Schuster, and Hayes. One of the most prestigious financial firms in the state. A firm that might be interested in hiring someone with insider knowledge of their competitors' clients and practices. That's devious. And potentially very effective. Marjorie leaned forward. But it would require Patricia's cooperation in something ethically questionable at best. Leave Patricia to me, I said with more confidence than I felt. What matters now is neutralizing Jeremy Fulton before his 48-hour deadline expires. As I left Marjorie's office, my phone buzzed with yet another missed call from Victoria. This time, however, she left a voicemail. Mom, I don't know what's going on with you anymore, but Lily is asking questions I can't answer. She misses you. Whatever issues are between us, please don't punish her for them. Call me back. Please. The message caught me off guard. Victoria rarely said please to anyone, much less with the hint of genuine emotion I detected in her voice. Was it another manipulation? Or was there still some thread of real feeling beneath the layers of entitlement and greed? Before I could analyze it further, another call came through. Michael. I've been thinking about our conversation, he said without preamble when I answered. About what you did and why. And my throat felt suddenly dry. And I'm still processing it. But I want you to know that while I don't approve of the deception, I understand the desperation behind it. Victoria and Marcus have been problematic for years. I just never realized how bad it had gotten. Relief flooded through me. Thank you for trying to understand. It means more than you know. Don't thank me yet. I'm calling because I think you need to end this.
Soon.
Before it destroys any chance of salvaging your relationship with Victoria or the girls. That's exactly what I'm trying to do. But on my terms, not theirs. Michael sighed heavily. Mom, at some point, someone has to be the bigger person. This path you're on, it leads to scorched earth. Is that really what you want? Was it? The question echoed his earlier challenge, forcing me to confront my true motivations. Was I seeking justice or vengeance? Resolution or destruction? What I want, I said carefully, is acknowledgement. Recognition of years of disrespect and manipulation. I want Victoria to see what she's become, what she's done. Without that, any reconciliation would be built on the same rotten foundation. And if that acknowledgement never comes? If Victoria can't or won't see what you need her to see, what then? It was the question I'd been avoiding since Christmas night. The possibility that this elaborate plan might not produce the catharsis, the recognition, the changed behavior I was hoping for. I don't know, I admitted. But I've come too far to turn back now. After we hung up, I sat in my car in Marjorie's parking lot, watching afternoon shadows lengthen across the asphalt. Michael was right about the risks. This path could lead to irreparable damage, to complete estrangement, to losing my grandchildren entirely. But the alternative, returning to the status quo, to subtle humiliations and manufactured dependency, was unthinkable. I had glimpsed a part 3. When my daughter left that tearful voicemail about my granddaughter, I felt the first crack in my resolve. 3 hours later, I was sitting across from the financial advisor who tried to blackmail me, offering him something far more valuable than money. That's when I realized the most dangerous game isn't the one you play with others, it's the one you play with yourself. If you're still watching, subscribe now and leave a comment if you've ever had to choose between justice and family. The choice is never simple. The offices of Winthrop, Schuster, and Hayes occupied the top 3 floors of a gleaming downtown high-rise, a far cry from the modest suite where Marcus's firm operated. I sat in the reception area, surrounded by understated luxury that conveyed power without needing to announce it. The kind of establishment where old money whispered rather than shouted. Patricia kept me waiting precisely 10 minutes, not long enough to be discourteous, but sufficient to establish the dynamic. When her assistant finally ushered me into her corner office, she greeted me with a professional smile that revealed nothing to the young man who had escorted me. Once the door closed, her expression shifted to concern. "This is unexpected. Our meeting wasn't scheduled until next week." "Something's come up." I settled into the chair across from her desk. "Someone knows about the lottery deception. He's threatening to expose me to Victoria and Marcus unless I pay him." Patricia's eyebrows rose. "Blackmail. Interesting. Who is our enterprising extortionist?" "Jeremy Fulton, the financial advisor Marcus brought to my home." Recognition flickered across her face. "Fulton. Yes, I know of him. Mid-level talent at a mid-tier firm. Ambitious, but blocked from advancement by more established partners." "You've done your homework. I make it my business to know the competition." She leaned back, fingers steepled. "What exactly does he want?" $50,000 for favorable testimony in the conservatorship case. If I refuse, he tells Marcus the truth and testifies against me. "And you're here because I need your help to neutralize him." Patricia studied me, her keen eyes assessing.
What do you propose?
I outlined my plan, offering Jeremy Fulton something more valuable than a one-time payment, something Marcus couldn't match: career advancement at a prestigious firm like Winthrop, Schuster, and Hayes. "You want me to hire a man who's actively attempting to blackmail my client?" Patricia's tone was incredulous, but I detected a hint of admiration beneath it. "Not hire him, just dangle the possibility before him, long enough to secure his testimony, to get through the conservatorship hearing. After that, you can decide if he's worth the risk." "It's unethical." "So is blackmail," I countered. "Consider it a preemptive poaching of talent. Firms like yours do it all the time." Patricia was silent for a long moment, weighing implications, calculating risks and benefits. Finally, she nodded. "I'll meet with him. Make no promises, but inquire about his career aspirations. Mention potential opportunities. Enough to make him reconsider his allegiance to Marcus." "Thank you." "Don't thank me yet." Her expression turned serious. "Eleanor, this plan of yours is becoming increasingly complex. More moving parts mean more potential points of failure. First the lottery deception, now counter-blackmail through career incentives. Where does it end?" It was the same question Michael had posed, the same doubt I'd been wrestling with myself. "It ends with the truth. All of it, exposed in court, where Victoria and Marcus can't dismiss or manipulate it." "And after? Have you thought about what comes after the exposure?" I hadn't, not concretely. The aftermath remained a blur in my mind, a vague hope of reconciliation on new terms, of respect earned rather than demanded. But the practical reality of navigating those waters remained unclear. "One battle at a time," I said finally. Patricia didn't look convinced, but she nodded. "I'll contact Jeremy Fulton today. Set up a discreet meeting. In the meantime, you should prepare for the possibility that he'll go to Marcus anyway, either before or after our conversation." The thought sent a chill through me. Jeremy had given me 48 hours, but there was nothing preventing him from changing his mind, from deciding Marcus was the safer bet regardless of future opportunities. "If he does," I said, "then we accelerate the timeline. Reveal the truth on our terms before they can use it against us." A risky strategy, but potentially effective. Patricia made a note in her calendar. "I'll let you know how the meeting goes. Until then, maintain the course with Marjorie. Continue gathering evidence, preparing for the hearing as planned." As I left Patricia's office, I felt the weight of what I'd set in motion pressing down on me. The simple lie told in a moment of humiliation had spawned an ever-expanding web of complications, contingencies, countermoves. A chess game where the board kept growing, new pieces appearing with their own rules and motivations. Victoria's voicemail about Lily still haunted me. Whatever my feelings toward my daughter, my granddaughters were innocent in this conflict. Yet they were being affected nonetheless, caught in the crossfire of adult grievances. On impulse, I took a detour on my way home, driving past Westlake Elementary just as school was letting out. I parked across the street, watching the flood of children emerge from the building. It took only moments to spot them, Lily's blonde ponytail bouncing as she walked, Rose's red backpack with a unicorn patch I'd sewn on for her birthday. They were accompanied by a young woman I didn't recognize, probably the nanny Victoria had mentioned hiring after her promotion last year. The girls looked normal, chatting, laughing, untroubled by the legal and emotional warfare being waged by the adults in their lives. Or so I thought, until Lily happened to glance in my direction. Our eyes met across the street. Her face lit up in recognition, then just as quickly clouded with confusion. She tugged at the nanny's sleeve, pointing toward me. The woman looked over, frowning, then shook her head and hurried the girls toward a waiting SUV. Before they reached it, Lily broke away, darting between parked cars toward me. My heart leapt into my throat as she navigated the street, ignoring the nanny's calls. "Grandma." She collided with me in a fierce hug that nearly knocked me off balance. "You came to see us. Mom said you were sick and couldn't visit." I held her close, breathing in the scent of her strawberry shampoo, the same brand Victoria had used as a child. "I'm not sick, sweetheart. I've just been busy with some grown-up problems." "Are you mad at Mom? She gets all weird when we talk about you." The nanny had reached us by then, Rose trailing behind her, eyes wide with surprise and delight. "Miss Lily, you know you're not supposed to run off like that." The young woman looked at me with suspicion. "I'm sorry, but I'm going to have to ask you to step away. Mrs. Harrington left specific instructions about who can interact with the children." Lily clung tighter. "It's my grandma. Mom never said we couldn't see Grandma. Actually, she did." The nanny's expression was apologetic but firm. "I have explicit instructions not to allow any unscheduled visits, especially from you, Mrs. Caldwell."
I'm sorry.
The revelation struck me like a physical blow. Victoria had actually instructed the nanny to keep me away from my grandchildren, had gone so far as to lie about my health to explain my absence. Rose had reached us by then, wrapping her arms around my waist from the other side. "Grandma, are you coming to my dance recital next week?" "I'm a snowflake." The nanny looked increasingly uncomfortable. "Girls, we need to go. Your mother is expecting you home for your piano lesson at 4. "Can Grandma come with us?" Lily asked hopefully. She could talk to Mom and fix whatever's wrong. "I don't think that's a good idea right now," I said gently, kneeling to their level. "Your mom and I need to work some things out between us first. But I want you both to know that I love you very much and I'm not sick and I think about you every day. Promise you'll come to my recital?" Rose's bottom lip trembled. "Mom said you probably wouldn't." Another knife to my heart. "I will do everything in my power to be there," I promised, though I had no idea how I would manage it given Victoria's restrictions. The nanny had taken out her phone, presumably to call Victoria and report the unauthorized encounter. "Girls, we really need to go."
Now.
With reluctance, they detached themselves from me. As they walked away, Lily looked back repeatedly, waving until they reached the SUV. I waved back, maintaining a smile until they were safely inside. Only then did I allow the tears to fall. I was still sitting in my car when my phone rang.
Victoria.
"Of course. How dare you?" she hissed when I answered. "Ambushing my children at school? After everything that's happening?" I didn't ambush anyone. I was driving by and saw them coming out. The lie came easily, though I immediately regretted it. More deception, more justifications. "Don't insult my intelligence, Mother. You were parked across from the school, waiting for them. Jessica saw you."
Fine.
"I wanted to see my grandchildren. The grandchildren you've been keeping from me while lying about my health. I've been protecting them from your increasingly erratic behavior." What was I supposed to tell them? That their grandmother is having a mental breakdown and trying to destroy our family? Is that what you think is happening? Victoria's voice cracked slightly. I don't know what's happening anymore. The mother I knew wouldn't fabricate a conservatorship case against her own daughter. I didn't fabricate anything. You filed those papers, Victoria. You and Marcus. Because we're worried about you. Because you've been acting bizarre since Christmas. The secrecy, the sudden financial decisions cutting us off. For a brief moment, I allowed myself to consider the possibility that Victoria genuinely believed what she was saying. That from her perspective, my behavior appeared concerning, irrational, worthy of intervention. If you're so worried about my well-being, I said carefully, why did you instruct the nanny to keep me away from the girls? Why tell them I'm sick when I'm not? A pause. I don't want them confused by whatever is going on with you. They're children, Mom. They don't need to be drawn into adult problems. They're already drawn in. They miss their grandmother. They don't understand why I've disappeared from their lives. And whose fault is that? Victoria's anger resurfaced. You're the one who started this with your bizarre lottery story and your sudden hostility toward Marcus and me. It was pointless, this circular argument where each of us believed ourselves the injured party, the reasonable one. We were talking across each other, neither hearing what the other was truly saying. Rose's dance recital. I said, changing tactics. She asked if I'll be there. Will you allow that, at least? Victoria's hesitation spoke volumes. I don't think that's a good idea right now. She's 8 years old, Victoria. She wants her grandmother at her recital. Are you really going to deny her that because of our conflict? Don't use my children as emotional leverage. Her voice had turned cold again. The recital is a school function with limited seating. We've already allocated our tickets to guests. Guests, but not her own mother. The deliberate exclusion couldn't have been clearer. I see. I kept my voice steady despite the pain lancing through me. Well, please tell Rose I'll be thinking of her. That I know she'll be the most beautiful snowflake on stage. I'll tell her. A pause. Then Victoria added with unexpected softness. She practiced her routine for weeks, you know. Takes it very seriously. She always has. Even as a toddler, she'd practice her somersaults until she got them perfect. The shared memory created a momentary bridge between us, a reminder of the relationship that existed before all this. Mom.
Victoria Gesetati.
This doesn't have to be so adversarial. If you just agree to some basic oversight of your financial decisions, some regular check-ins with a doctor we both trust, we could resolve this without court. The olive branch, such as it was, came with the same strings attached, their control, their terms, their narrative of my incapacity. Nothing had changed. I've spent the past 8 years accepting your version of oversight, I reminded her. Monthly stipends with strings attached. Constant reminders of my dependence. Exclusion from major family decisions. Where did that lead us? To a Christmas dinner where your husband felt comfortable calling me an old witch while you laughed. He was drunk. It was a tasteless joke. I've told him repeatedly to apologize. Yet he hasn't. And you continue to stand beside him, to defend him, to enable his disrespect. He's my husband, she said, as if that explained everything. And I'm your mother. Or, at least, I was before I became an inconvenient obligation to be managed. Victoria's intake of breath was audible. That's not fair. Isn't it? Tell me honestly, Victoria, if there were no money involved, real or imagined, would you have filed for conservatorship? Would you be so concerned about my mental state? That's a ridiculous question. Of course I would. Then why weren't you concerned last year when I told you I was considering downsizing because my pension barely covered expenses? Or the year before when I mentioned feeling isolated and depressed after your father's death? Where was this burning concern for my well-being then? Silence stretched between us, heavy with implications neither of us was willing to voice directly. I have to go, Victoria said finally. The girls need help with homework before dinner. Of course. Stay away from their school, Mom. Please. It just confuses them more. After she hung up, I sat in my car for a long time, watching parents collect their children, families reuniting after the school day, normal interactions untainted by the kind of conflict that had consumed my relationship with Victoria. The encounter with my granddaughters, followed by Victoria's call, had shaken me more than I wanted to admit. Seeing the confusion and hurt in Lily's eyes, hearing Rose's uncertainty about my attendance at her recital, these were concrete consequences of the path I'd chosen, collateral damage I hadn't fully anticipated. Was it worth it? The question echoed louder now, more insistent. Was vindication worth the price being paid by innocent bystanders? Before I could spiral further into doubt, my phone chimed with a text from Patricia. Meeting set with JF tomorrow, 11 a.m. Proceeding as discussed. One more piece moving into place. One step closer to the confrontation that would either heal or permanently rupture my family. The conservatorship hearing was scheduled for February 14th, Valentine's Day. The irony wasn't lost on me. A day celebrating love and connection would instead feature my family's dysfunction on full public display. With just 10 days remaining, preparation intensified. Marjorie assembled medical evaluations, financial records, witness statements, all documenting my competence and the suspicious timing of Victoria and Marcus's sudden concern. Meanwhile, Patricia reported that her meeting with Jeremy Fulton had gone productively, though she refused to share details beyond a cryptic "he's reconsidering his options." The countdown created a strange sense of suspended animation. I moved through my daily routines, grocery shopping, book club meetings, volunteer work at the community center, while carrying the weight of secrets and strategies no one around me could see. I smiled at neighbors, discussed the weather with the postal carrier, attended church as always, all while knowing that in days, my private humiliation would become public record. Then, 3 days before the hearing, everything changed. I was at home preparing dinner when the doorbell rang. Opening it revealed Marcus standing on my porch alone. No Victoria, no legal team, no financial advisors. Just my son-in-law, looking uncharacteristically uncertain. "Eleanor," he greeted me stiffly. "May I come in?"
I think we need to talk.
Every instinct warned against this. Marcus never operated without an agenda, without Victoria as buffer or witness. Yet curiosity overrode caution. What new approach was this? Briefly, I agreed, stepping aside to let him enter. He declined my automatic offer of tea, remaining standing in my living room, surveying the modest surroundings with what seemed like fresh eyes. "I'll get straight to the point," he said finally. "There's been a development you should be aware of." "Oh." Jeremy Fulton came to see me yesterday. He had a rather interesting story to tell. My pulse quickened, but I kept my expression neutral. Did he?
Yes.
About a lottery win that never happened. About a deliberate deception designed to expose. What did he call it? True characters in the face of perceived wealth. So Jeremy had betrayed us after all, despite Patricia's intervention. I should have expected it. A man willing to attempt blackmail was hardly trustworthy, regardless of incentives offered. I see. I remained standing, arms crossed, waiting for the anger, the accusations, the threats that would surely follow. Instead, Marcus did something completely unexpected. He laughed. Not mockingly, not cruelly, but with what sounded like genuine amusement and perhaps a touch of admiration. "It's brilliant, really," he said, shaking his head. "Absolutely brilliant. I never would have thought you capable of such strategic thinking." Is that a compliment or an insult? Both, perhaps. He sobered. The question is, what happens now? I studied him, trying to decipher this uncharacteristic approach. That depends on you and Victoria, doesn't it? Now that you know the truth, will you withdraw the conservatorship petition? Admit it was motivated by greed rather than concern. Marcus winced slightly. It's not that simple. It never is with you. Victoria doesn't know yet. He held up a hand as surprise registered on my face. I asked Jeremy not to tell her. Not until I'd spoken with you. This was unexpected. Marcus operating independently of Victoria, keeping information from her. It disrupted the united front they'd always presented. Why? He sighed, finally taking a seat on my couch. Because I know my wife, Eleanor. I know how she'll react. She'll be furious, humiliated, and absolutely unwilling to back down. She'll double down on the conservatorship. shift the argument to your deception as evidence of instability. And you disagree with that approach? I think it's a losing battle now, one that will only cause more damage to everyone involved. He leaned forward, elbows on knees. I'm a businessman, Eleanor. I know when to cut my losses. This has already gone too far. I remained standing, unwilling to relax into the conversation. What exactly are you proposing? A compromise. We withdraw the conservatorship petition quietly. In exchange, you agree to family counseling, all of us, including Victoria, working through these issues with professional help rather than legal warfare. It sounded reasonable. Too reasonable for the Marcus I knew. And what do you get out of this arrangement? A flicker of his usual calculation showed through. Discretion. The chance to resolve this privately rather than in open court. My reputation means everything in my business, Eleanor. The publicity of a contested conservatorship case, especially one where our motives could be questioned, would be problematic. Now we arrived at his true concern. Not family healing, not even Victoria's feelings, but his own professional standing. The threat of public exposure was more powerful than I'd realized. I notice you haven't asked about the money, I observed. About whether there really was a lottery win. I know there wasn't. Jeremy was quite clear on that point. Yet you believed it so readily at Christmas. Never questioned it. Never looked for verification. Just immediately started planning how to control it. Marcus had the grace to look uncomfortable. I'm not proud of that reaction. It was instinctive. Yes, it was. That's rather the point. He nodded, conceding the hit. I deserved that. But the question remains, can we find a way forward that doesn't destroy this family completely? I considered his offer, searching for hidden traps, for the manipulation that surely lurked beneath the reasonable surface. Family counseling sounded promising, but would Victoria participate meaningfully? Would anything actually change? Or would this be another facade, another performance of familial concern concealing the same old patterns? I need time to think about it, I said finally, and to consult with my lawyer. Of course. He stood, straightening his suit jacket. But time is short. The hearing is in 3 days. If we're going to withdraw the petition, it needs to happen soon. I understand. As he moved toward the door, he paused, turning back with an expression I couldn't quite read. For what it's worth, Eleanor, I am sorry about Christmas. The old witch comment was inexcusable, regardless of the circumstances. The apology, 8 weeks late and delivered only after his position had weakened, rang hollow. Yet it was more acknowledgement than he'd offered previously. It wasn't just Christmas, Marcus. It was years of subtle denigration, of treating me as less than. One apology doesn't erase that pattern. No, he agreed quietly. I suppose it doesn't. After he left, I called Marjorie immediately, recounting the unexpected visit and Marcus's proposal. It's a tactical retreat, she assessed. He sees the writing on the wall. Jeremy Fulton must have told him enough to make him realize their case is compromised. Now he's trying to salvage what he can while saving face. Do you think it's genuine? The offer of family counseling. Probably not in the way you're hoping. Marcus isn't suddenly concerned with healing family wounds. He's concerned with damage control. But that doesn't mean you can't use this opening to your advantage.
How?
By setting conditions. If they withdraw the petition, you want more than just family counseling. You want formal recognition of your autonomy, written agreements about your role in your grandchildren's lives, financial independence without strings attached. It made strategic sense, yet something in me resisted. More negotiations, more legal frameworks, more treating family relationships like business transactions. Wasn't that part of what had brought us to this point? I need to speak with Victoria, I decided. Directly, without Marcus as intermediary. If there's any chance of genuine reconciliation, it has to come from her, not from him managing her reactions. Marjorie's sounded dubious. That's risky. Victoria is more emotionally invested in this conflict than Marcus. Her pride is at stake in a way his isn't. Exactly. Which is why it has to be addressed directly. Pride, hurt, betrayal, these aren't legal issues. They're human ones. After promising to consider all options before making any decisions, I ended the call with Marjorie and dialed another number. Michael. If anyone could help navigate this new terrain, it would be my son. He answered on the third ring, his voice cautious.
Mom?
Everything okay? I explained Marcus's visit, the revelation that he knew about the lottery deception, his unexpected proposal for resolution. Wow, Michael exhaled when I finished. That's not what I expected from Marcus. Nor I, which makes me suspicious of his motives. Understandably, but it's an opening, isn't it? A chance to de-escalate before the hearing? Perhaps. But without Victoria's involvement, any agreement would be meaningless. She's the emotional core of this conflict, not Marcus. Michael was quiet for a moment. I've been talking to her, you know. Not about the lottery specifically. I kept your confidence there, but about her relationship with you over the years. This was news to me. What did she say? It's complicated. There's a lot of resentment, some of it dating back to childhood. Things I never knew about because I was away at college during Dad's decline because I moved across the country afterward. What things? I felt suddenly defensive. I was a good mother to both of you. Yes, but according to Victoria, you were different with her than with me. Harder on her, more critical, less supportive of her choices. The accusation stung, not least because there was a kernel of truth to it. I had been harder on Victoria, my brilliant, ambitious daughter who reminded me so much of myself at her age. I had pushed her to excel, to avoid the compromises I'd made in my own life. Had that push crossed into criticism? Had my desire to see her fulfill her potential been perceived as disapproval? I wanted the best for her, I said softly. For both of you. I know that, Mom. But Victoria, she sees your relationship through a different lens. She feels she spent her life trying to meet impossible standards, to earn approval that was always just out of reach. So this is all my fault? The humiliation, the control, the conservatorship, all justified because I was a demanding mother? No, of course not. Michael sounded frustrated. I'm not excusing her behavior. I'm trying to help you understand it. Victoria isn't just acting out of greed or malice. She's acting out of deep-seated resentment and hurt that predates any of this lottery business. It was a perspective I hadn't fully considered, that Victoria's treatment of me might be rooted in emotional wounds rather than simple entitlement. That her actions, however wrong, might make sense within her own narrative. What are you suggesting? I asked finally. Talk to her. Directly, honestly. Not about the legal case or the lottery, but about your relationship. About how you got to this point. It might not fix everything, but it's a start. And if she refuses to listen? If she's too angry about the deception? Then at least you tried. But Mom. He hesitated. You need to be prepared to acknowledge your part in this damaged relationship too. It's not all on Victoria. After we hung up, I sat in my silent living room, Michael's words echoing in my mind. Had I contributed more to this broken relationship than I'd been willing to admit? Had my focus on Victoria's behavior blinded me to patterns of my own that might have laid the groundwork for our current conflict? The questions were uncomfortable, challenging the narrative I'd constructed where I was solely the victim, Victoria and Marcus, the clear antagonists. Reality, as always, was messier, more nuanced. My phone chimed with a text from an unknown number. This is Lily using Rose's tablet again. Is it true you're not coming to the recital? Mom said you don't want to. Another lie. Another manipulation of my granddaughter's perceptions. Yet now I wondered if Victoria truly believed what she was telling them. If in her mind, my actions had constituted such a profound rejection that she interpreted it as disinterest in their lives. I texted back carefully. I want very much to come to the recital, sweetheart. I'm trying to work things out with your mom so that I can be there. 3 dots appeared, disappeared, appeared again. Finally, Mom's crying a lot lately. She thinks we don't notice, but we do. Is it because of you? The question landed like a blow. Children so often bear the emotional fallout of adult conflicts, absorbing tensions they don't understand, assuming burdens that aren't theirs to carry. It's complicated, Lily. Your mom and I are having some grown-up problems, but we both love you and Rose very much. None of this is your fault. Can't you just say sorry? That's what Mom makes us do when we fight. Out of the mouths of babes. The simplicity of her solution highlighted the absurdity of the elaborate war Victoria and I had been waging. Legal petitions, manipulative strategies, public confrontations, when perhaps what was needed was something much more basic. Not a strategic apology designed to gain advantage, but a genuine acknowledgement of hurt caused, regardless of intent. Sometimes grown-up problems need more than just saying sorry. I texted back, but I promise I'm trying to fix things. Try harder, came the immediate response. Rose really wants you at her recital. Before I could reply, another text followed. Gotta go. Mom's coming. I set down my phone, Lily's words still reverberating. Try harder. Such a simple directive, yet so difficult to execute when pride, hurt, and years of accumulated grievances stood in the way. What would it mean to try harder at this point? To reach out directly to Victoria, despite the risk of rejection? To acknowledge my own contributions to our damaged relationship, even while holding firm against the conservatorship's implications? As I contemplated these questions, another text arrived, this one from Patricia. Jeremy Fulton has accepted a preliminary offer from WSH, contingent on his testimony in your case. He's agreed to provide a sworn statement regarding Marcus's intentions and actions. Meeting tomorrow to finalize details. One more piece falling into place. One more advantage in the legal chess match. Yet the victory felt hollow now, overshadowed by Lily's innocent question and Michael's challenging perspective. The truth was, I had started this deception as a desperate act of self-defense, a way to expose truths that had long been buried beneath polite facades. Now that those truths were emerging, not just about Victoria and Marcus, but about myself as well, I wasn't sure I was ready to face them. But ready or not, the reckoning was coming. 3 days until the hearing. 3 days to decide whether to proceed with public exposure or attempt private reconciliation. 3 days that would shape whatever remained of my relationship with my daughter and grandchildren. I picked up my phone again, fingers hovering over Victoria's contact information. Try harder, Lily had said. Perhaps it was time to do exactly that. I pressed call before I could reconsider. Each ring seemed to last an eternity. Just when I thought it would go to voicemail, Victoria answered. Mom, her voice was guarded, wary. We need to talk, I said simply. Not about the legal case. About us. About how we got here. A long pause. Marcus came to see you, didn't he?
Yes.
But that's not why I'm calling. Then why? Because Lily texted me. Because she asked why you're crying when you think no one notices. Because she suggested I should just say sorry like you make them do when they fight. Victoria's sharp intake of breath was audible. She shouldn't be texting you. And she certainly shouldn't be telling you private things about me. She's 10 years old, Victoria. She's confused and hurting because the adults in her life are at war. She wants it fixed. And you think one conversation will do that? After everything that's happened?
No.
But it's a start. I took a deep breath. I'm willing to try if you are. Just us. No Marcus, no lawyers. Mother and daughter. The silence stretched so long I wondered if she'd hung up. Finally, she spoke in a voice so quiet I had to strain to hear. When? Relief flooded through me. Tomorrow? Neutral ground, somewhere public, but private enough to talk freely. The botanical garden, she suggested after a moment. The winter exhibit is open. It's usually empty on weekday mornings. 10 o'clock. Fine. Neither of us seemed to know how to end the call. So much unsaid, so many emotions hovering just beneath the surface. Victoria, I ventured finally. Whatever happens tomorrow, I want you to know. Don't, she interrupted. Not over the phone. Save it for tomorrow, when we can look each other in the eye. After she hung up, I sat motionless, phone still clutched in my hand. The conversation had been brief, tense, laden with unspoken feelings. Yet she had agreed to meet. To talk. It was more than I had dared hope for just hours earlier. I spent the evening in a state of nervous anticipation, alternating between rehearsing what I wanted to say and reminding myself to listen rather than merely waiting for my turn to speak. If there was any chance of genuine reconciliation, it would require both of us to hear truths we might not want to face. In the morning, I dressed with care, not in the power outfit I'd planned for the conservatorship hearing, but in softer colors, more approachable attire. I wanted Victoria to see her mother, not an adversary. The botanical garden was indeed nearly deserted when I arrived, just a few elderly couples and a school group in the tropical section. I found Victoria already waiting in the desert exhibit, sitting on a bench surrounded by carefully tended cacti and succulents. The controlled environment, the plants adapted to harsh conditions, it seemed an oddly fitting backdrop for our conversation. She looked up as I approached, her expression guarded. I was struck anew by how much she resembled me at her age, the same determined set to her jaw, the same watchful eyes. When had I stopped seeing myself in her and started seeing only the ways she differed from my expectations? "You came," she said, neither rising nor offering any greeting. "Of course." I sat beside her, leaving space between us. "Thank you for agreeing to meet." Victoria nodded stiffly, then turned to face the elaborate cactus display before us. "Lily has been inconsolable since your visit to the school, asking why you're not allowed to see them, why I'm keeping them away from you." "I'm sorry about that. It wasn't my intention to upset her." "What was your intention?" The question was loaded, potentially referring to the school visit, the lottery deception, or any number of choices I'd made in our deteriorating relationship. "Which time?" I asked quietly. A flicker of something, recognition, perhaps even the ghost of humor, crossed her face. "Fair point. Let's start with the lottery. What exactly were you trying to accomplish with that particular fabrication?" So Marcus had told her after all. Or perhaps she'd figured it out herself after his visit. When my daughter asked me why I'd fabricated the lottery win, her eyes held no rage, only a bone-deep exhaustion I recognized from my own mirror. 6 hours later, as we sat in a judge's chambers with our lawyers, I realized the greatest fortune I'd ever possessed wasn't money, but the courage to finally speak truth to power, even when that power wore my daughter's face. If you're still watching, subscribe now and leave a comment about a time when you had to choose between peace and justice in your own family. Sometimes the hardest battles are fought across dinner tables, not courtrooms. The botanical garden's desert exhibit surrounded us with resilient life, plants that had evolved to survive the harshest conditions, that hoarded resources and developed protective spines. As Victoria waited for my answer about the lottery deception, I couldn't help but see the parallels to our own relationship. It wasn't planned, I admitted finally. When Marcus called me an old witch at Christmas dinner, when you laughed along, something broke inside me. The lottery story came out almost instinctively, a shield against humiliation. Victoria's gaze remained fixed on the cacti. "And after? When you maintain the lie, met with financial advisors, let us believe it for weeks." "That was different," I acknowledged. "That was deliberate. I wanted you and Marcus to reveal yourselves, to show me and everyone else who you really were when you thought I had something you wanted. And we failed that test spectacularly." Her voice was flat, neither accepting nor denying. "Yes, you did." She turned to face me then, eyes bright with unshed tears. "Did it ever occur to you that your test was fundamentally unfair? That you created an artificial situation designed to bring out the worst in us?" The question caught me off guard. In my narrative, the lottery had simply revealed existing character flaws, not created new ones. How is it unfair to see how you'd react to my sudden wealth? Because it was a lie wrapped in a hurt wrapped in a trap. Victoria shook her head. "You were already angry, justifiably, about what happened at Christmas. You were looking for evidence to confirm what you already believed about us. And we gave it to you." Her surprising self-awareness disarmed me. I had expected defensiveness, denials, attempts to justify their behavior. Instead, she was acknowledging their failure while questioning the context that had revealed it. "Would you have behaved differently if it had been real?" I asked. "If I had actually won $5 million? Victoria considered this, twisting her wedding ring absently. "I don't know. I'd like to think so, but..." She sighed. "Marcus and I did discuss how to help you manage it. We did worry about your ability to handle that kind of wealth. And yes, we did see opportunities for ourselves in it." The honesty was refreshing, even as the content confirmed my worst perceptions. "But Mom," she continued, "you have to understand, our concern wasn't fabricated, even if it was tangled up with self-interest. You're almost 70. You've never managed significant wealth. You live alone in a house that's becoming increasingly difficult for you to maintain. So, you admit the conservatorship was about controlling my supposed winnings?" "Not entirely." She looked down at her hands. "It started there, yes. But as we prepared the case, I began remembering other things. Times you'd seemed confused about financial matters. How you sometimes repeat the same stories. The time last year when you got lost driving to our house for Thanksgiving." I stiffened. I took a wrong turn. That happens to people of all ages. And I don't repeat stories any more than anyone else. "Maybe not," she conceded. "But once we started looking for signs of cognitive decline, we found them, or thought we did. That's how these things work. You see what you're primed to see." Her insight was disarming. She was acknowledging their confirmation bias, the way they had constructed a narrative of my incapacity that served their interests while perhaps containing elements of genuine concern. "And now," I asked, "now that you know the lottery was a fabrication, do you still believe I'm in cognitive decline?" Victoria was quiet for a long moment. "I think you executed a complex deception that required significant planning, memory management, and strategic thinking. That's not consistent with someone experiencing dementia." A faint, reluctant smile touched her lips. "In fact, it suggests a rather formidable mental acuity." The almost admiring tone took me by surprise. "Yet Marcus indicated you would be furious, that you would double down on the conservatorship using the deception itself as evidence of instability." "Marcus doesn't know me as well as he thinks he does." Something hardened in her expression. "He came to me last night, explained what he'd learned from Jeremy Fulton, suggested we withdraw the petition quietly to avoid embarrassment. And you disagreed?" "I told him I needed to think, to talk to you directly." She straightened on the bench, composing herself. "The truth is, Mom, this situation has forced me to confront some uncomfortable realities, not just about how Marcus and I have treated you, but about our marriage itself." This was unexpected territory. I had been so focused on my relationship with Victoria that I'd given little thought to how this conflict might be affecting her marriage to Marcus. "What do you mean?" When Marcus told me about the lottery deception, his primary concern was how it would affect his business reputation if it became public. Not what it revealed about our treatment of you, not what it meant for our family. His reputation. She laughed without humor. It was illuminating. I chose my next words carefully. "Victoria, I never intended to drive a wedge between you and Marcus." "You didn't. You just helped me see what was already there." She brushed an invisible speck from her slacks. "Did you know he's been having an affair with his executive assistant for the past year?" The revelation landed like a stone dropping into still water. "No, I had no idea." "Neither did I, until last week." One more secret revealed during this episode. Her voice remained steady, but I could see the tension in her shoulders, the slight tremor in her hands. Apparently, filing a conservatorship against one's mother-in-law creates stress that sends one running to a 28-year-old's apartment. I reached for her hand instinctively. To my surprise, she didn't pull away. "I'm so sorry, Victoria." "Don't be. It's clarifying, in its way, like your lottery test." She squeezed my hand briefly before releasing it. "The point is, I'm reassessing many things right now, including how I've treated you these past years." Hope flickered cautiously within me. "Does that mean you're considering withdrawing the conservatorship petition?" "Yes." "But not because Marcus wants to avoid embarrassment." She met my gaze directly. "Because it was wrong. Because whatever legitimate concerns I may have had were hopelessly compromised by financial motives. Because we should have been talking to you, not about you." The admission, clear, direct, without qualifications, was more than I had dared hope for. Yet something held me back from immediate relief or triumph. Perhaps it was the new awareness, spurred by Michael's words, of my own contributions to our damaged relationship. "I wasn't blameless in this, Victoria," I said quietly. "Michael helped me see that." Her eyebrows rose. "Michael?
You've been talking to him about this?" "Yes."
"He's been remarkably insightful." I took a deep breath. "He suggested that your actions might be rooted in older wounds, that I might have been harder on you than on him, more critical, less approving." Victoria's face registered surprise, then a flicker of vindication.
"He said that?"
"He said you felt you'd spend your life trying to meet impossible standards, to earn approval that was always just out of reach." I met her gaze steadily. Was he right? She looked away, focusing again on the desert landscape before us. "Do you remember my high school graduation?" I was valedictorian. "Of course.
I was so proud of you."
"Were you?" "Because what I remember is you pointing out the grammar error in my speech. Not in private, later, but immediately afterward, in front of everyone." "Wonderful speech, Victoria, though you did use who, when it should have been whom, in that third paragraph." Her imitation of my voice was uncannily accurate, down to the slightly didactic tone I often adopted when correcting others. The memory returned with uncomfortable clarity. I had said exactly that, had thought I was being helpful by pointing out a minor flaw that she could correct in future speeches. I hadn't considered how it might feel to an 18-year-old who had just delivered an otherwise flawless address to her entire graduating class. "I didn't realize how that affected you," I said softly. "I thought I was helping you improve." That was always the message. Whatever I achieved wasn't quite enough. Whatever I did could have been done better. Victoria's voice held old pain, long suppressed. "When I brought home an A-, you asked what happened to the other points. When I won second place in the state debate championship, you wondered aloud what the first place winner had that I didn't." Each example landed like a physical blow. Had I really been so relentlessly critical? So focused on improvement that I'd failed to celebrate achievements? "I wanted you to reach your full potential," I tried to explain. "I saw how brilliant you were, how capable. I didn't want you to settle for less than you could achieve." But the message I received was that I was never quite good enough. Victoria's voice broke slightly. "And then I married Marcus, who measures worth in dollars and status, who sees relationships as transactions, who calls my mother an old witch at Christmas dinner and expects me to laugh along if I want peace in my marriage." The parallels struck me forcefully, how the critical voice I had internalized from my own upbringing had been passed to Victoria, who had then sought out a partner who reinforced the same message in different ways. Generational patterns repeating themselves, wounds inherited and transmitted. "I'm so sorry, Victoria," I said, meaning it more deeply than perhaps any apology I'd ever offered. "I never meant to make you feel less than extraordinary. I was trying to protect you from the mistakes I made, the compromises I accepted. Instead, I pushed you toward different but equally damaging choices." She nodded, accepting the apology without immediately absolving me. "And I'm sorry for how Marcus and I have treated you. The conservatorship was wrong, both the motivations behind it and the way we pursued it." We sat in silence for a few minutes, letting these mutual acknowledgments settle between us. It wasn't forgiveness exactly, not yet. But it was recognition, the beginning of understanding that might eventually lead to healing. "What happens now?" I asked finally. "Legally? I'll instruct our lawyer to withdraw the petition immediately. No conditions, no negotiations." She straightened, making a visible effort to compose herself. "Personally, that's more complicated." "Yes," I agreed. "It is. I need time, Mom, to process everything that's happened, with you, with Marcus, with my own life. I can't just pretend the past few months haven't happened." "I understand. But," she added with a hesitancy that revealed her vulnerability, "I don't want the girls to lose their relationship with you. Whatever is happening between us, you're still their grandmother." Relief washed through me. "Thank you for that. They mean the world to me." Rose's recital is tomorrow at 6 p.m. I'll have Jessica save you a seat. And she hesitated. Perhaps you could come for dinner afterward. Just you, me, and the girls.
No, Marcus. No, Marcus.
The implication was clear. Whatever reconciliation might be possible between Victoria and me, her marriage was now in serious jeopardy. I felt a complex mix of emotions about this. Concern for my daughter's well-being, guilt at the role my deception might have played in bringing hidden problems to the surface, and if I was being completely honest, a certain vindication that Marcus's true character had finally been revealed. I'd like that very much, I said simply. As we walked toward the exit, Victoria cleared her throat. There's one more thing you should know about the conservatorship hearing. What is it? Even though we're withdrawing the petition, the judge has requested we all appear in chambers tomorrow morning. Apparently, once these proceedings are initiated, the court wants to ensure the vulnerable party, that would be you, is being protected, even if the petition is withdrawn. My heart sank. Despite Victoria's change of heart, we would still face judicial scrutiny. What time? 9 a.m. The judge specifically requested that all parties attend, you, me, Marcus, and our respective lawyers. She glanced at me. I'm not sure what to expect, but our lawyer says it's fairly standard procedure. Nothing to worry about. Nothing to worry about. Easy for her to say, now that she had decided to withdraw the petition. For me, the prospect of sitting in a judge's chambers, having my competence evaluated, my deception potentially exposed, remained deeply unsettling. I'll be there, I promised. We parted with an awkward half-hug, neither fully embracing nor completely withholding physical contact. Like our conversation, it acknowledged the possibility of reconnection while respecting the distance that still remained between us. As I drove home, I felt emotionally drained yet strangely lightheaded, as if a weight I'd carried for years had begun to lift. Victoria and I had spoken more honestly in that hour than we had in perhaps decades. Painful truths had been acknowledged on both sides. It wasn't reconciliation, not yet, but it was a foundation upon which something new might be built. My phone rang as I pulled into my driveway.
Marjorie.
I've just heard from Victoria's attorney, she said without preamble. They're withdrawing the petition. Unconditionally. Yes, I know. Victoria and I just met. A moment of surprised silence. You met with her? Without legal representation? It was a personal conversation, not a legal negotiation. I smiled at her protective concern. Don't worry, I didn't sign anything or make any admissions that could be used against me. Well, that's unexpected. And the judge still wants to see everyone tomorrow? Apparently so. Victoria said it's standard procedure. It is, Marjorie confirmed. Judge Harmon likely wants to ensure you're not being pressured into accepting the withdrawal, that your interests are being protected.
She paused.
We should discuss how to handle any questions about the lottery. The lottery. The fabrication that had catalyzed this entire crisis, exposed hidden dynamics, forced confrontations long overdue. The lie that had, ironically, revealed so many truths. I'll tell the truth, I decided. If asked directly, I'll acknowledge there was no lottery win. Are you sure? It could complicate matters. The judge might question your judgment, your motives. I'm done with deception, Marjorie. Whatever consequences come from the truth, I'll face them. After we hung up, I called Michael to update him on the dramatic developments, Victoria's agreement to withdraw the petition, our surprisingly honest conversation, the revelation about Marcus's infidelity. I'm proud of you, Mom, he said when I finished. Both of you, actually. It took courage to have that conversation. It's just a beginning, I cautioned. There's still so much hurt on both sides, so many habits to unlearn. But it is a beginning. That's more than you had yesterday. His perspective, as always, helped ground me. Will you be able to come for Rose's recital tomorrow? It would mean a lot to the girls. To all of us. I'll check flights right now, he promised. No guarantees, but I'll try. That evening, I prepared for the judge's meeting with meticulous care, reviewing documents with Marjorie by phone, selecting an outfit that conveyed dignity and competence without seeming calculated, rehearsing how I would explain the lottery deception if asked. Sleep eluded me, my mind racing with possibilities, uncertainties, hopes newly born, and fears not fully laid to rest. By morning, I felt simultaneously exhausted and alert, as one does before momentous events. The courthouse was quieter than I'd expected, most of the day's activities not yet begun at this early hour. Marjorie met me at the entrance, her calm presence reassuring. "Remember," she said as we walked toward Judge Harmon's chambers, "this is not an adversarial proceeding now. With the petition withdrawn, this is simply the judge ensuring all parties are acting in good faith." Victoria and her attorney were already seated in the antechamber when we arrived. She gave me a small nod, her expression tense but composed. Her lawyer, a sleek woman in her 40s named Diane Brennan, was reviewing documents with focused attention. We waited in awkward silence for several minutes before Marcus arrived, accompanied by a different attorney than the one who had previously represented them jointly, a silver-haired man who radiated aggressive confidence. Marcus himself looked uncharacteristically disheveled, his normally immaculate appearance showing subtle signs of strain, a slightly crooked tie, faint shadows under his eyes. He nodded curtly to Victoria, avoided my gaze entirely, and took a seat as far from us as the small waiting area allowed. At precisely 9 o'clock, Judge Harmon's clerk appeared, ushering us into a wood-paneled chamber that managed to feel both imposing and intimate. The judge herself, a woman in her 60s with keen eyes and a reputation for no-nonsense efficiency, sat behind a massive desk, case files organized before her. "Good morning," she greeted us. "I appreciate you all being here promptly. I understand the petitioners wish to withdraw their request for conservatorship. Is that correct?" Victoria's attorney stood. "Yes, Your Honor. My client, Victoria Harrington, has submitted formal withdrawal documents. We no longer wish to pursue this action." "So noted." Judge Harmon turned to Marcus. "And you, Mr. Harrington? You were a co-petitioner. Do you concur with this withdrawal?" Marcus's attorney rose. "Your Honor, my client wishes to proceed with the petition independently." The announcement landed like a thunderclap in the quiet room.
Victoria gasped audibly.
Marjorie's hand found mine, squeezing in silent support. "I see." Judge Harmon's expression revealed nothing. "Mrs. Harrington, were you aware of your husband's intention to continue this action without your participation?" Victoria stood, visibly struggling for composure. "No, Your Honor. This comes as a complete surprise." "Mr. Harrington," the judge continued, "given that your wife has withdrawn from the petition and is, I presume, the blood relation to Mrs. Caldwell, on what basis do you claim standing to pursue this action?" Marcus's attorney stepped forward. "Your Honor, my client has been the primary financial support for Mrs. Caldwell for the past 5 years. He has an established relationship of care and support that grants him standing under Section 1820B of the Probate Code." Judge Harmon studied Marcus over her reading glasses. "Is that accurate, Mr. Harrington? You've been providing financial support to Mrs. Caldwell." Marcus finally spoke, his voice carefully modulated to project concern. "Yes, Your Honor. My wife and I have provided a monthly stipend to Mrs. Caldwell since her husband's death. We've monitored her well-being, assisted with home repairs, included her in family activities. I consider her family, regardless of blood relation." The calculated performance, the selective recounting of our relationship, made my blood boil. Marjorie must have sensed my reaction, as her grip on my hand tightened in warning. "Mrs. Caldwell," Judge Harmon turned to me, "would you characterize your relationship with Mr. Harrington as he's described it?" Here was my opportunity to counter Marcus's narrative, to describe the reality of our interactions, the condescension, the control, the humiliation culminating in that Christmas dinner. Yet I was acutely aware of Victoria sitting just feet away, of the complex family dynamics that would be affected by whatever I said in this moment. "Mr. Harrington and my daughter have indeed provided financial assistance," I acknowledged. "However, that support has frequently been accompanied by conditions, by reminders of my dependence, by limitations on my autonomy. It has been used as leverage rather than offered as genuine aid." Judge Harmon nodded, making a brief note. And your mental capacity, Mrs. Caldwell? The original petition cited concerns about cognitive decline, unusual financial decisions, erratic behavior. How would you respond to those characterizations? I glanced at Victoria, who gave me an almost imperceptible nod. Permission, I thought, to speak the full truth. Your Honor, there has been no cognitive decline. There have been no unusual financial decisions, because there has been no sudden windfall requiring management. I took a deep breath. The original petition was filed after I claimed to have won a $5 million lottery prize. That claim was false, a fabrication I created in response to persistent humiliation from Mr. Harrington, culminating in an incident at Christmas dinner where he referred to me as an old witch, while my daughter laughed. The judge's eyebrows rose slightly. You deliberately fabricated a lottery win? Yes, Your Honor. It was not premeditated. It was a spontaneous response to humiliation. But once I saw how quickly Mr. Harrington and initially my daughter moved to control this supposed windfall, I allowed the deception to continue as a means of exposing their true attitudes toward me. Marcus's attorney stood immediately. Your Honor, Mrs. Caldwell has just admitted to an elaborate deception that demonstrates exactly the kind of erratic, potentially delusional behavior that concerns my client. This confession strengthens rather than weakens the case for conservatorship. Judge Harmon held up a hand. I'll determine what this demonstrates, Counselor. She turned back to me. Mrs. Caldwell, you allowed your family to believe you had won a substantial lottery prize, knowing this was untrue. You permitted them to take legal action based on this falsehood. Is that correct? Yes, Your Honor. Did you at any point file false documents? Attempt to secure loans or credit based on this fabricated windfall? Engage in any legally fraudulent activity? No, Your Honor. I simply stated I had won. I never created false documentation or sought financial advantage from the claim. The judge nodded, then turned to Victoria. Mrs. Harrington, when did you become aware that your mother's lottery claim was false? Victoria stood, her voice steadier now. Yesterday, Your Honor. My husband learned of it the day before from a financial advisor who had suspected the deception. After learning the truth, I met with my mother to discuss the situation directly. That conversation led to my decision to withdraw from the petition. And yet your husband wishes to proceed. Judge Harmon's gaze shifted to Marcus. Mr. Harrington, given that there is no actual lottery winning requiring management, what is your current concern regarding Mrs. Caldwell's capacity? Marcus straightened in his chair. Your Honor, the deception itself demonstrates concerning behavior. Creating an elaborate lie, maintaining it for weeks, allowing legal proceedings to advance based on false premises, these are not the actions of someone making sound judgments. I see. The judge made another note, then addressed all of us. This is an unusual situation. Mrs. Caldwell has acknowledged a deception that, while troubling, does not appear to meet the legal standard for fraud. Mrs. Harrington, having learned the truth, no longer believes conservatorship is appropriate. Mr. Harrington, despite not being a blood relation, wishes to pursue the action independently, citing the deception itself as evidence of incapacity. She shuffled the papers before her, then continued. Before making any determination, I'd like to hear from someone not directly involved in this family conflict. Mrs. Caldwell, I understand you've undergone a competency evaluation as part of preparing your defense against the original petition. Is that correct? Yes, Your Honor, Marjorie answered for me. Dr. Elizabeth Chen, a board-certified geriatric psychiatrist, conducted a comprehensive evaluation last week. Her report has been submitted to the court. Judge Harmon located the document in question. I've reviewed Dr. Chen's findings. She concludes that Mrs. Caldwell shows no signs of cognitive impairment, dementia, or any condition that would impact her ability to make sound financial or personal decisions. Marcus's attorney interjected, Your Honor, that evaluation was conducted before Mrs. Caldwell's deception was known. Dr. Chen's assessment might have been different had she been aware of this significant fabrication. A valid point, the judge acknowledged. However, Dr. Chen specifically noted Mrs. Caldwell's excellent executive function, strategic thinking, and ability to manage complex social interactions, qualities that, ironically, would be necessary to maintain the very deception Mr. Harrington cites as evidence of incapacity. A subtle murmur of amusement rippled through the room. Even Victoria seemed to suppress a smile. Judge Harmon closed the file decisively. Having reviewed all evidence and heard from all parties, I find insufficient basis to proceed with a conservatorship action. Mr. Harrington, while you may have genuine concerns, you lack both the standing and the evidentiary support to pursue this independently now that Mrs. Harrington has withdrawn. Relief flooded through me, so powerful I felt momentarily lightheaded. Marjorie's hand found mine again, this time in congratulation rather than warning. But Judge Harmon wasn't finished. That said, I have concerns about the dynamics revealed in these proceedings. Mrs. Caldwell, while I understand the emotional context of your deception, it represented poor judgment and caused significant disruption to your family. I strongly encourage you to seek family counseling to address the underlying issues that led to this situation. Yes, Your Honor, I agreed readily. My daughter and I have already discussed that possibility. Excellent. She turned to Marcus, her expression markedly cooler. Mr. Harrington, your persistence in this matter despite the withdrawal of the blood relative petitioner and the revelation that there is no actual fortune to manage raises questions about your motivations that I will not explore further in this setting. I suggest you reflect carefully on your actions and their impact on your family relationships. Marcus's face flushed with barely contained anger, but he managed a stiff nod. This matter is dismissed, Judge Harmon concluded. Mrs. Caldwell, you are free to manage your affairs without court intervention. I wish all of you healing and reconciliation, though that may require difficult truths and significant changes. With that, she gathered her papers and stood, signaling the end of our meeting. As we filed out of the chamber, Marcus brushed past us without a word, his attorney hurrying to keep pace. The tension radiating from him was palpable, a storm of thwarted entitlement and exposed calculation. In the hallway, Victoria approached me hesitantly. Well, that was unexpected. Marcus continuing alone? Yes, it was. I studied my daughter's face, searching for signs of distress or conflict. Are you all right? She laughed softly, though without much humor. I'm not sure all right covers it. My husband just tried to declare my mother incompetent against my explicit wishes. That seems to call for a stronger descriptor than not all right. What will you do now? I asked carefully, conscious of not wanting to overstep or pressure her during what was clearly a marital crisis. Victoria glanced toward the exit where Marcus had disappeared. I don't know. That depends on several conversations that haven't happened yet. She turned back to me. But the recital is still on for tonight. The girls are counting on it. On you being there. I wouldn't miss it for the world, I promised. And Michael might come too. He was checking flights last night. A genuine smile brightened her face. That would be wonderful. The girls miss their uncle. She hesitated, then added, I've missed him too. Missed a lot of things, it seems. As Victoria walked away to confer with her attorney, Marjorie touched my arm. That went better than we could have hoped. Judge Harmon saw right through Marcus's performance. Yes, I agreed, though I suspect the next phase won't be easy for Victoria. Marcus isn't someone who accepts defeat gracefully. That's her battle to fight, Marjorie reminded me gently. You've won yours. Had I? In the legal sense, certainly. The conservatorship petition was dismissed, my autonomy affirmed, Marcus's manipulations exposed. Yet the greater victory, reconciliation with Victoria, rebuilding our relationship on more honest foundations, remained a work in progress, with no guaranteed outcome. Still, for the first time in years, perhaps decades, I felt genuine hope. Victoria and I had spoken truths long buried, acknowledged hurts on both sides, taken tentative steps toward understanding. It wasn't forgiveness, not yet, but it was a beginning. As I left the courthouse, stepping into the crisp winter sunshine, my phone chimed with a text from Michael. Got a flight. Landing at 3 p.m. We'll meet you at the recital. So proud of both you and Vic. A simple message, yet it brought tears to my eyes. My family, fractured, flawed, but still mine, was taking halting steps toward healing. Whatever came next, I would face it with the knowledge that truth, however painful initially, had created the possibility of genuine connection. That evening, I arrived at the elementary school auditorium 30 minutes early, nervously clutching a small bouquet of roses for my granddaughter. The lobby was already filling with parents, grandparents, siblings, normal families untouched by the kind of legal and emotional warfare that had consumed ours. A tap on my shoulder made me turn. Michael stood there, travel-weary but smiling, arms open for a hug. "You made it," I breathed, embracing him tightly. "Wouldn't miss it." He stepped back, studying my face. "You look different. Lighter somehow." "It feels different," I admitted. "Like I can finally breathe after holding my breath for years." We found our seats, saved as promised by the nanny Jessica, who greeted me with a warmth that suggested Victoria had updated her instructions regarding my access to the girls. Victoria herself appeared moments later, alone, dressed elegantly but with subtle signs of strain around her eyes. "Michael." She embraced her brother with genuine affection. "I didn't know if you'd make it." "Wild horses, sis." He hugged her back. "Wild horses." Victoria sat beside me, close enough that our shoulders occasionally touched, a small but significant change from the careful distance she would have maintained just days earlier. We exchanged pleasantries about the program, the school, the other children performing, normal conversation that felt extraordinary given recent events. Neither of us mentioned Marcus's absence, though it hung in the air between us, an unacknowledged shift in the family constellation. When the lights dimmed and the music began, I felt Victoria's hand briefly touch mine, not quite holding it, but acknowledging connection. A tentative peace offering that meant more than any legal victory. Then Rose appeared on stage in her snowflake costume, face serious with concentration as she executed the dance steps she'd practiced for weeks. My heart swelled with love, so intense it felt like physical pain. This beautiful child, my granddaughter, performing her heart out while the adults in her life struggled to rebuild what had been broken. As I watched her twirl and leap with the joyous abandon of childhood, I made a silent promise to myself, to her, to all of us. Whatever happened next, whatever challenges remained in reconciling with Victoria, in navigating the aftermath of Marcus's exposed manipulations, I would ensure that Rose and Lily were protected from the fallout. They deserved childhood unmarred by adult grievances, free from the legacy of hurt that had shadowed Victoria's relationship with me. After the performance, Rose ran to us in the lobby, still in her costume, face flushed with excitement and pride. "Grandma, Uncle Michael,
Did you see me?
did you see my solo?" I knelt to her level, presenting the roses. "We saw everything, sweetheart. You were the most beautiful snowflake in the whole winter." She threw her arms around my neck, nearly knocking me off balance. "I knew you'd come. I told Lily you would." Over Rose's shoulder, I met Victoria's gaze. Something passed between us, acknowledgement of damage done, of trust broken and painstakingly being rebuilt, of the innocence we both wanted to preserve in these children we loved. "We're going for ice cream to celebrate," Victoria announced. "All of us." Lily's already waiting in the car with Jessica. "Ice cream in January?" Michael teased, lifting Rose onto his shoulders. "Sounds perfect for a snowflake." As we walked toward the parking lot, Victoria fell into step beside me. "Marcus moved out this afternoon," she said quietly, ensuring Rose couldn't hear. "While we were in court, he left a note saying he needs space to reevaluate." I wasn't sure how to respond. Sympathy seemed inappropriate given Marcus's actions, yet triumph would be callous considering Victoria's pain. "How do you feel about that?" I asked finally. She considered the question seriously.
Relieved. Angry. Sad.
Mostly relieved, which then makes me feel guilty. A small, rueful smile. "It's complicated." "Yes," I agreed. "It is." "What's complicated?" Rose called down from Michael's shoulders. "Grown-up stuff," Victoria answered. "Nothing for snowflakes to worry about." "Is it about Daddy?" Rose asked with the uncanny perception children often display. "Lily says he's on a trip." Victoria's step faltered slightly. Yes, sweetheart. Daddy needed to take a trip for a while. But you and Lily are going to be just fine. We all are. As we reached the car, I noticed Lily watching us intently through the window, her expression far too serious for a 10-year-old. When she saw me, she rolled down the window. Grandma, you came. And Uncle Michael too. Of course we did, I assured her. We wouldn't miss Rose's big performance. Are you coming home with us? For dinner? Mom said you might. I glanced at Victoria, who nodded confirmation. Yes, I am. And so is Uncle Michael.
Lily est facile.
When the divorce papers arrived 3 months after the recital, my daughter didn't cry, she laughed. Mother, she said, pouring us both a glass of wine in my new kitchen, sometimes losing everything is how you find out what you actually have. 6 months after Marcus called me an old witch at Christmas, I sat in a courtroom watching him lose everything he valued, his reputation, his social standing, and most satisfyingly, his smugness. If you've stayed with me to the end of the story, subscribe now and comment if you've ever witnessed karma deliver the perfect payback to someone who truly deserved it. The ice cream celebration after Rose's recital marked the beginning of a new chapter for our fractured family. Sitting around a table at Cold Stone Creamery, watching my grandchildren dive into elaborate sundaes while Michael entertained them with stories of Colorado wildlife, I observed Victoria with new eyes. Despite the strain evident in the tight lines around her mouth, the shadows beneath her eyes, she laughed at her brother's jokes, asked thoughtful questions about the girls' school activities, maintained a facade of normalcy for their benefit. It was a strength I hadn't fully appreciated before, this capacity to set aside personal pain to protect others. Perhaps because I had been on the receiving end of her sharp edges for so long, I had missed the steel beneath, the fierce protectiveness that was now focused on shielding her daughters from the fallout of Marcus's betrayal. Later that evening, after the girls had gone to bed and Michael had retreated to the guest room, Victoria and I sat in her kitchen with cups of tea that grew cold as we talked. Really talked, without the defensive barriers that had characterized our interactions for years. I keep thinking about what you said at the botanical garden, she admitted, staring into her mug. About how I grew up feeling I was never quite good enough. How that might have led me to Marcus, who reinforced the same message in different ways. I've been thinking about that too, I said. About how patterns repeat across generations unless we consciously break them. About how my critical voice became the one in your head. It wasn't all you, Victoria sighed. Dad had his own impossible standards. Remember his reaction when I got that B in calculus junior year? You'd think I'd committed a felony. The memory stirred a complicated mix of emotions. My late husband had indeed been demanding, particularly regarding academics. I had moderated his expectations at times, though apparently not enough. Yet another blind spot in my perception of our family dynamics. We both wanted the best for you, I said quietly. We just didn't always express it in ways that felt supportive rather than critical. And then I married Marcus, who measures everything in dollars and status. Victoria's laugh held little humor. Talk about repeating patterns. What will you do now? I asked cautiously, aware of treading on sensitive ground. About your marriage? Victoria was silent for a long moment, tracing the rim of her mug with one finger. I don't know. Part of me wants to try counseling to see if there's anything worth salvaging. For the girl's sake, if nothing else. And the other part wants to change the locks and burn his custom suits in the driveway. A ghost of a smile touched her lips before fading. The affair isn't even the worst of it, though that's bad enough. It's what this whole episode has revealed about who he really is. How quickly he was willing to declare my mother incompetent to get his hands on money that wasn't even real. How he continued pursuing the conservatorship even after I withdrew. I reached across the table, covering her hand with mine. Whatever you decide, I'll support you. No judgment, no pressure. She looked up, surprise evident in her expression. Really? No opinion on whether I should kick him to the curb or attempt reconciliation. You're an adult, Victoria, with adult children of your own. You don't need my permission or approval for your decisions. I squeezed her hand gently. That's something I should have recognized years ago. The tension in her shoulders eased slightly. Thank you. That means more than you know. As I drove home that night, Michael beside me in the passenger seat, I felt a curious mixture of hope and uncertainty. The immediate crisis had passed, the conservatorship dismissed, the truth acknowledged, tentative steps taken toward reconciliation. Yet so much remained unresolved, so many wounds still raw, so many conversations yet to be had. You're quiet, Michael observed as we neared my house. Just thinking about Victoria. About what happens next for her. She's stronger than you think, Mom. Than either of you think, actually. He gazed out at the passing streetlights. She'll figure it out. I hope so. I signaled for a turn. I keep wondering if I should have seen it sooner. Marcus's true character. If I should have said something when they were dating, when she first brought him home. Michael chuckled softly. Would she have listened? Victoria, at 28, was hardly open to maternal guidance about her choice of husband. Probably not, I admitted. She was so determined to prove her independence, to build a life different from what your father and I had. Different, but with troubling similarities. Michael's observation echoed my earlier thoughts about generational patterns. Dad never cheated, never tried to have you declared incompetent, but he did control the finances, make most of the major decisions. Victoria internalized more of that dynamic than she realizes. It was a perceptive analysis, one that prompted me to reflect on my own marriage in ways I had avoided since Richard's death. He had been a good man in many ways, hardworking, devoted to his family, never physically abusive. Yet there had been a subtle power imbalance, a gentle but persistent dismissal of my opinions on financial matters, career decisions, even home renovations. Had Victoria absorbed those lessons unconsciously? Had she sought out a partner who embodied the authority figure her father represented, then spent years trying to earn his approval just as she had with Richard? I've been thinking about selling the house, I said, changing the subject to something more immediately actionable. It's too big for just me, and the maintenance is becoming a burden. Michael nodded. Makes sense. Any ideas where you'd go instead? I've been looking at those new condos downtown near the river. Walking distance to shops, restaurants, the community center where I volunteer. No lawn to mow, no gutters to clean. Sounds perfect for this next chapter. This next chapter. The phrase resonated, capturing exactly how I felt, as if I were turning a page, beginning something new after the forced conclusion of what had come before. I think so too, I agreed. It's time for a fresh start, physically and otherwise. The following weeks unfolded with a strange mixture of normalcy and profound change. I met with a realtor, began the process of preparing my house for sale, sorted through decades of accumulated possessions with Michael's help during the week he stayed before returning to Colorado. Victoria and I spoke regularly, our conversations gradually becoming more natural, less burdened by the weight of recent events. The girls visited every weekend, their resilience a reminder of childhood's remarkable adaptability. Marcus remained conspicuously absent from family gatherings, though I gathered from Victoria's careful references that they were in communication, primarily regarding financial matters and arrangements for the girls. She had not yet made any definitive decision about their marriage, was taking time to evaluate options, consult with her own therapist, consider what future she wanted for herself and her daughters. I respected her space, offered support without advice, worked to rebuild trust through consistency and respect rather than grand gestures. It was slow, painstaking progress, marked by occasional setbacks, moments when old patterns reasserted themselves, when a careless word or unconscious criticism reopened wounds not fully healed. Yet we persevered, both motivated by the desire for something better than what we'd had before. Not perfect, not without conflict, but honest.
Real.
In late March, my house sold after just 3 weeks on the market. The buyer, a young family with 2 small children, fell in love with the spacious backyard, the established neighborhood, the very features that had become burdens to me in recent years. I found unexpected joy in the thought of children running through those rooms again, of family dinners around the table where I had raised my own children. With the proceeds, I purchased a light-filled corner unit in the riverside development I'd been eyeing, 2 bedrooms, one for visiting grandchildren, an open floor plan, and a balcony overlooking the water. Moving day was set for April 15th, a date that felt symbolically appropriate for this transition. A new beginning with the spring. Victoria surprised me by offering to help with the move, to coordinate logistics, to bring the girls to assist with unpacking. A reversal of our usual roles, her organizing, directing, taking charge while I accepted assistance without resentment or defensive pride. "It's a beautiful space, Mom," she said, standing in the empty condo after the final walkthrough. "I can see why you fell in love with it." "Room for a fresh start," I agreed. "And for visitors. The girls can have sleepovers whenever they want." Her smile held genuine warmth. "They'll love that. They've missed you these past years, even when we were technically in contact. They sense the tension, the distance between us." "Children always know," I said softly. "Even when we think we're protecting them, they feel the undercurrents." Victoria nodded, running her hand along the quartz countertop. "Marcus filed for divorce yesterday," she said abruptly, her voice carefully neutral. "His attorney delivered the papers in mourning. Very civilized. Very professional." I kept my expression equally neutral, waiting for her to indicate how she felt about this development before offering any response. "He's moving to Chicago," she continued. "His firm is opening a new office there. He's requested joint custody, but with the girls primarily residing with me given the distance." "How do you feel about that?" I asked gently. Victoria turned to face me, leaning against the counter. "Relieved, mostly. I've spent the past 3 months in a holding pattern, waiting to see if he'd make some grand gesture of reconciliation, some acknowledgement of his behavior. Instead, he's been increasingly distant, increasingly focused on the Chicago opportunity." She shrugged. "In the end, he made the decision for both of us. And the girls? They'll be hurt, of course. They love their father. But they've already adjusted to his absence these past months, and I think they'll be better off with clarity than continuing uncertainty." Her voice faltered slightly. "At least, that's what I keep telling myself." I moved to stand beside her, our shoulders touching in quiet solidarity. "They have you. They have Michael and me. They'll be okay." "I know." She straightened, visibly composing herself. "Anyway, I didn't mean to hijack your exciting day with my drama. This is about your new beginning, not my ending." "They're connected, Victoria. All of it. The lottery deception, the conservatorship, your marriage. One long, tangled thread leading to this moment where we're both starting something new." She considered this, then nodded slowly. "I suppose you're right, though I doubt either of us would have chosen this particular path to get here." "No," I agreed. "But here we are nonetheless." The movers arrived the following week, transforming the empty condo into my new home with remarkable efficiency. Victoria and the girls helped unpack kitchen items, arrange furniture, hang artwork, turning the generic space into something that reflected my taste, my history, my life. As I unpacked my bedroom, I came across a small box I hadn't opened in years, Richard's personal effects from his last hospital stay. His wedding ring, his watch, a handwritten letter he'd composed for me in his final days. I sat on the edge of my new bed, turning the envelope over in my hands, remembering the grief that had been too raw to allow me to read his final words when they were first given to me. With a deep breath, I opened it now, ready at last to face whatever he had wanted to tell me. "My dearest Eleanor," it began in his familiar, precise handwriting. "If you're reading this, I've left you to face the world alone, something I promised on our wedding day I would never do. I'm sorry for breaking that promise, and for so many other failures over our 40 years together." I paused, surprised by this opening acknowledgement of failings. Richard had rarely admitted error in life, had maintained a certain emotional reserve even in our most intimate moments. "I realize now, too late, how often I dismissed your wisdom, overlooked your contributions, treated you as less than the full partner you deserve to be. How I passed this same pattern to Victoria, teaching her through my example that a woman's worth is measured by a man's approval. These are heavy regrets to carry into whatever awaits me. My hope for you, my love, is freedom. Freedom from financial worry. The insurance and investments should provide security, but more importantly, freedom to discover who Eleanor truly is when not defined as Richard's wife, Victoria, and Michael's mother. You've spent a lifetime supporting others' dreams. Now is your time to pursue your own. Don't allow Victoria to repeat my mistakes. Don't allow her to measure her worth through Marcus's eyes as you sometimes did through mine. Help her find her own path, even if that means difficult truths between you. All my love, all my admiration, all my gratitude for the life we shared, Richard. Tears streamed down my face as I finished reading, emotions too complex to name washing through me. Validation of perceptions I'd sometimes doubted. Grief for conversations never had. Regret for patterns recognized too late to disrupt. Yet also, unexpectedly, a sense of release. Richard had seen more clearly in his final days than during much of our marriage. Had recognized truths I had struggled to articulate even to myself. Had wanted for me exactly what I was now claiming. Independence, self-definition, a life shaped by my own choices rather than others' expectations. I wiped my eyes, carefully refolded the letter, and placed it in the drawer of my new bedside table. Whatever Richard's failings, whatever patterns we had unconsciously established and passed to our children, he had wanted better for me, for Victoria. Had recognized, even from the limitations of his generational and personal perspectives, that we deserved lives defined by our own terms. It felt like permission, like blessing, like a circle closing. Victoria knocked softly on the door frame. "Mom, the girls and I are heading out for pizza. Want to join us?" I turned, knowing my eyes were red from crying but no longer feeling the need to hide vulnerability from my daughter. "I'd love to. Just give me a minute to freshen up." Her gaze fell to the box of Richard's effects, understanding dawning. "Dad's things? Are you okay?" "I am." I smiled through the remnants of tears. I finally read his letter, the one from the hospital.
"Oh."
She hesitated, then asked, "What did it say?" "Many things. Important things." I stood, touching her arm gently. "I'll share it with you soon, when you're ready." She nodded, respecting the boundary, without pressing further. Another small sign of our evolving relationship, of mutual respect replacing the power struggles of the past. Over pizza with my daughter and granddaughters that evening, I observed our little family with fresh eyes. Victoria, laughing at Lily's dramatic retelling of a playground incident. Rose, meticulously picking mushrooms off her slice while explaining her latest art project. The three of them forming their own unit, resilient despite recent upheavals, bound by love stronger than the circumstances threatening to disrupt it. I belonged with them, was welcomed by them, yet was no longer defined solely by my relationship to them. I was Eleanor, not just mother, grandmother, widow, but a woman with her own identity, her own path forward. The realization settled in me like a stone dropping into still water, creating ripples that would continue to expand outward, reshaping my understanding of myself and my place in the world. The divorce proceedings between Victoria and Marcus unfolded over the following months, with less acrimony than I had feared but more complications than Victoria had anticipated. Financial entanglements built over a decade of marriage, questions of property division, custody arrangements for the girls, all required careful negotiation, legal consultation, difficult decisions. I remained supportive without interfering, available for late-night phone calls when Victoria needed to vent, for weekend sleepovers when she needed time alone, for practical assistance with childcare during court appearances and mediation sessions. It was a delicate balance, being present without overstepping, offering perspective without imposing judgment. Through it all, Victoria displayed a strength and clarity that both surprised and impressed me. She approached the dissolution of her marriage not with vindictiveness, but with pragmatic determination to secure her daughter's well-being and her own financial independence. The corporate attorney who had sometimes used her professional skills to intimidate now wielded them in self-protection, insisting on fair division of assets, appropriate child support, clear custody parameters. Marcus, for his part, seemed eager to expedite the process, to minimize public exposure, to maintain the facade of an amicable split. Whether motivated by genuine desire to protect the girls or by concern for his professional reputation remained unclear, though Victoria suspected the latter. He's already dating his executive assistant openly, she told me during one of our now regular Sunday brunches at my condo. Taking her to industry events, client dinners. The same woman he swore was just a colleague for months. How does that make you feel? I asked, refilling her coffee cup. Victoria considered the question seriously. Less than I expected, honestly. There's some humiliation, of course. Everyone in our social circle knows, is watching for my reaction, deciding whether to invite me or them to gatherings. She shrugged. But the marriage itself? I've been grieving that for longer than I realized. Maybe years. Her self-awareness struck me anew. This capacity to examine her own feelings without self-delusion, to acknowledge difficult truths without defensiveness. It was a quality I had sometimes lacked in our relationship, had failed to nurture in her during her formative years when criticism came more easily than introspection. You've handled all this with remarkable grace, I told her. I'm proud of you. She looked momentarily startled, then pleased by the simple praise. Thank you. That means a lot coming from you. I should have said it more often over the years. How proud I am of the woman you've become. How much I admire your strength, your intelligence, your devotion to your daughters. Victoria's eyes grew suspiciously bright.
Well,
that's quite the Sunday morning speech. Not a speech. Just a truth too long unspoken. We fell silent then, the moment too full for further words. Around us, my new home gleamed with morning light, with possibilities still unfolding, with the promise of relationships redefined by choice rather than obligation. In June, an unexpected development disrupted the relatively smooth progression of Victoria's divorce. Marcus's firm announced an internal investigation into financial irregularities involving several senior partners, Marcus prominent among them. The precise allegations remained vague in public statements, but Victoria received more detailed information through her attorney. Questionable billing practices, potential misappropriation of client funds, possible tax evasion stretching back several years. He wants to settle immediately, she told me, pacing my living room with nervous energy. Suddenly, he's offering more than my attorney initially requested. The house outright, additional support for the girls, minimal limitations on custody. In exchange, he wants a confidentiality clause regarding his financial dealings during our marriage. He's afraid you know something that could damage him in this investigation, I surmised.
Exactly.
And the thing is, I might. She stopped pacing, turning to face me directly. I never managed our finances. Marcus insisted on handling everything, but I signed joint tax returns every year. I attended business dinners where certain arrangements were discussed. I have emails, documents he stored in our home office. What are you considering? Victoria resumed pacing, hands gesturing as she thought aloud. Legally, I could be implicated if I knowingly benefited from financial impropriety. I need to protect myself, protect the girls. But using this situation to leverage a better settlement feels uncomfortably close to blackmail. What does your attorney advise? To accept the generous settlement, sign the confidentiality agreement, and provide any potentially relevant information to my own separate counsel to determine if I need to proactively disclose anything to investigators. She sighed heavily. It's sound legal advice, but something about it feels wrong, like I'm somehow complicit in whatever he's done by taking this money now. I considered her dilemma, the complex intersection of legal, financial, and ethical considerations. What would make you feel right about this situation, regardless of the legal advantages or disadvantages? Victoria paused, surprised by the question. I don't know. I haven't really thought about it that way. She was silent for a long moment, then said slowly, I want to be able to look my daughters in the eye when they're grown and tell them I acted with integrity during this difficult time. That I didn't take advantage of their father's troubles, but also that I didn't help conceal wrongdoing. Then perhaps that's your answer, I suggested. Accept the settlement that provides for your daughter's security, but decline the confidentiality clause. Tell Marcus you won't volunteer information to investigators, but you also won't lie if questioned directly. He'll never agree to that. Then he reveals how worried he truly is about what you know. I kept my voice gentle, aware of the gravity of the situation despite Marcus's past behavior toward me. Victoria, whatever he's done, it's not your responsibility to protect him from the consequences, especially at potential risk to yourself. She nodded slowly, absorbing the perspective. You're right. I know you're right. A rueful smile touched her lips. When did you become so wise about these things? I've had some practice recently with difficult ethical decisions, I reminded her dryly. Some more successful than others. Her laugh broke the tension. Fair point. The lottery deception wasn't exactly a model of ethical clarity. No, but it was honest in its way, a response to genuine grievance, a test that revealed important truths, even if the method was questionable. And now Marcus faces his own test, Victoria observed. One he seems likely to fail based on his panic over the settlement. She was right. Within days of her counter-proposal, accepting the generous financial terms, but rejecting the confidentiality clause, Marcus's attorney withdrew the offer entirely, reverting to the original, more limited settlement proposal. It was a tactical error born of desperation, revealing both guilt and fear that Victoria recognized immediately. He's showing his hand, she told me over the phone, her voice tight with controlled anger. He's terrified I'll talk to investigators, which means there's something significant to find. What will you do now? Exactly what I should have done from the beginning. I'm meeting with the investigators tomorrow, voluntarily, with my own attorney present. I'll share what I know, which isn't much in terms of specifics, but might help direct their inquiry. Are you sure that's wise? It could complicate your divorce, antagonize Marcus further. Victoria's laugh held little humor. Mom, I spent 8 years with a man who called you an old witch at Christmas dinner, who tried to have you declared incompetent to control money you didn't even have, who cheated on me while pursuing that legal action, and who now appears to have engaged in financial misconduct that could potentially implicate me. I'm done protecting him from his own actions. The determination in her voice reflected a fundamental shift from a woman who had accommodated her husband's behavior to preserve peace, to one who prioritized her own integrity regardless of consequences. It was a transformation I had witnessed gradually over these past months, a reclaiming of personal power that had begun, ironically, with my own act of deception at that fateful Christmas dinner. Victoria's meeting with investigators proved consequential. While her direct knowledge of specific transactions was limited, she provided context, timelines, names of clients, and associates that helped focus the inquiry. Within weeks, the internal investigation expanded to include federal authorities examining potential wire fraud, tax evasion, and securities violations. Marcus, facing mounting legal jeopardy, suddenly reversed course on the divorce settlement, accepting Victoria's terms without the contested confidentiality clause. Whether motivated by desire to finalize at least one aspect of his increasingly complicated situation, or by recognition that Victoria could not be intimidated into silence, the effect was the same. She secured the financial security and custody arrangements she had sought from the beginning. The divorce was finalized in August, just as Marcus and 2 other partners were indicted on multiple federal charges. The news made headlines in financial publications, spread through their social circle with the speed of particularly juicy gossip, created precisely the public exposure Marcus had been so desperate to avoid. Victoria maintained dignified silence publicly, focusing on helping her daughters process this additional upheaval in their lives. Privately, she acknowledged complex emotions, vindication mingled with regret, relief shadowed by concern for Lily and Rose, who now faced the prospect of their father potentially serving prison time. They're so confused, she confided during one of our weekly dinners, now a firmly established ritual. They understand divorce on some level. Plenty of their friends have divorced parents. But criminal charges, possible incarceration, that's beyond their comprehension. What have you told them? The truth, in age-appropriate terms. That their father made serious mistakes in his business, that there are consequences for those mistakes, that none of it changes how much he loves them or how much I love them. She pushed her food around her plate, appetite diminished by worry. But they still ask questions I can't answer. Will Daddy go to jail? Will they still see him? Will their friends treat them differently? Children are remarkably resilient, I reminded her. With consistent love and honest communication, they'll find their way through this. I hope so. Victoria looked up, meeting my gaze directly. I keep thinking about what you said months ago, about generational patterns, about how I internalized Dad's and your attitudes toward achievement, validation, partnership. About how those patterns influenced my choice of Marcus, my tolerance for his behavior. I nodded, waiting for her to continue. I'm determined to break that cycle with Lily and Rose. To teach them their worth isn't measured by external validation or material success. That they don't need to earn love through achievement or perfect behavior. Her voice strengthened with conviction. That making mistakes, even serious ones, doesn't define their character if they take responsibility and learn from them. That sounds like wisdom they'll carry throughout their lives, I said softly. Wisdom I wish I'd had to offer you at their age. You gave me other gifts, Victoria acknowledged. Determination. Resilience. The example of a woman who reinvented herself after loss, who stood up for her dignity even when it meant risking relationships. Even when it meant fabricating a lottery win? I asked wryly. Even then. She smiled, the expression warming her tired features. Especially then. Marcus's trial was scheduled for early October, the culmination of months of pre-trial motions, evidence gathering, witness interviews. Victoria was subpoenaed to testify about financial documents she had signed during their marriage, about conversations she had witnessed, about the lifestyle their household had maintained. She approached the obligation with characteristic composure, neither vengeful nor protective, simply committed to honest testimony regardless of its impact on her former husband. I offered to accompany her to court, to provide moral support during what promised to be a difficult experience. You don't have to do that, Mom, she protested when I made the suggestion. After how Marcus treated you, sitting through his trial seems above and beyond. I'm not doing it for him, I clarified. I'm doing it for you, and perhaps a bit for myself as well. Closure, she guessed. Something like that, I agreed. A final chapter in this story that began last Christmas. And so, on a crisp October morning, I found myself sitting in a federal courtroom, watching as Marcus and his co-defendants entered in expensive suits that couldn't quite disguise their diminished stature. Gone was the arrogant confidence I remembered from family gatherings, from that Christmas dinner where he had called me an old witch, while expecting appreciation for his financial generosity. In its place was the careful demeanor of a man facing potential ruin, professional, financial, reputational, perhaps even his freedom. He glanced around the courtroom as he took his seat, his gaze landing briefly on Victoria and me in the second row. Something flickered across his features. Recognition, perhaps regret, quickly suppressed as he turned his attention to his defense team. Victoria was called to testify on the second day, her testimony factual, measured, neither embellished to damage Marcus nor minimized to protect him. She acknowledged signing joint tax returns without scrutinizing the details, attending business dinners where certain clients received special attention, benefiting from a lifestyle that, in retrospect, may have been funded partially through questionable means. Did the defendant ever explicitly discuss fraudulent activities with you? The prosecutor asked.
No, Victoria answered truthfully.
Financial matters were his domain in our marriage. He shared information on a need-to-know basis, and apparently decided I didn't need to know the details of his professional activities. Yet you lived well during your marriage. Designer clothes, luxury vehicles, private schools for your children, expensive vacations. The prosecutor displayed photographs of their home, their possessions, visual evidence of conspicuous consumption. Were you not curious about the source of this lifestyle? Victoria met his gaze steadily. I assumed it came from his legitimate earnings as a senior partner in a successful investment firm. I had no reason to question that assumption until the investigation began. And once you became aware of potential impropriety, I consulted independent legal counsel immediately to determine my own potential liability. I cooperated fully with investigators. And I filed for divorce, she added, the chronology slightly adjusted to preserve her dignity. When Marcus's attorney cross-examined her, his approach was cautious, almost deferential, a stark contrast to the aggressive tactics he had employed against other witnesses. Mrs. Harrington, during your marriage to my client, did you ever observe him engaging in behavior you knew to be illegal?
No, Victoria answered.
Did he ever ask you to sign documents you knew contained false information? Not to my knowledge. Would you characterize your divorce as acrimonious? Victoria considered the question. I would characterize it as necessary, she said finally, given the circumstances. The attorney nodded, apparently satisfied with responses that neither helped nor particularly harmed his client's case. No further questions, Your Honor. As Victoria returned to her seat beside me, I squeezed her hand briefly in silent support. Her testimony had walked a careful ethical line, truthful without being vindictive, clear about her own limited knowledge while not attempting to shield Marcus from consequences. The trial continued for another week, with expert witnesses dissecting financial records, former associates testifying under immunity agreements, clients describing investments that had delivered suspicious returns. Through it all, Marcus maintained the carefully constructed facade of a respected professional who had perhaps bent rules, but never broken laws intentionally. It was a performance that might have worked in less serious circumstances, with less substantial evidence. But as the prosecution methodically presented document after document, witness after witness, the pattern of deliberate fraud became increasingly difficult to deny. The jury deliberated for just 2 days before returning their verdict, guilty on 14 of the 18 charges, including wire fraud, tax evasion, and securities fraud. Marcus's co-defendants fared similarly, though with variations in specific counts reflecting their different roles in the scheme. As the verdict was read, I watched Marcus's rigid posture, the slight tremor in his hands, the downward gaze that avoided meeting anyone's eyes. This was a man facing the consequences of choices made over years, not in a moment of weakness or desperation, but through calculated decisions that valued profit over principle, appearance over integrity. There was no satisfaction in witnessing his downfall, no vindictive pleasure in seeing him humbled. Only a somber recognition that actions have consequences, that character reveals itself in crisis, that the facade of success built on deception eventually crumbles under its own weight. Victoria sat beside me, equally solemn, her expression revealing the complex emotions of seeing her children's father, her partner of 10 years, facing imprisonment and disgrace. Whatever his failings as a husband, whatever pain he had caused her, this moment brought no triumph, only the closing of one chapter and the unavoidable beginning of another. Outside the courthouse, reporters clustered with cameras and microphones, eager for statements from anyone connected to the case. Victoria navigated through them with dignified silence, her hand firmly in mine, both of us focused on reaching the car without engaging with the media circus. One persistent reporter stepped directly into our path. Mrs. Harrington, how does it feel to see your ex-husband convicted? Will you be seeking to modify your divorce settlement given these new developments? Victoria paused, considering the intrusive questions with remarkable composure. My focus remains where it has been throughout this difficult time, on ensuring my daughter's well-being and emotional security. I have no further comment on legal matters that are now concluded. With that, she continued walking, head high, pace steady, the very picture of grace under pressure. I followed, struck anew by her strength, her resilience, her capacity to navigate crisis with integrity intact. In the car, safely away from probing questions and recording devices, she finally allowed her composure to crack slightly. Well, she said, her voice unsteady, that's that. Are you okay? I asked gently. She considered the question, hands gripping the steering wheel though she had not yet started the engine. I don't know what I am. Relieved it's over? Sad for what this means for the girls? Angry that Marcus put us all in this position? She shook her head. All of it, I suppose. All valid feelings, I assured her. No need to choose just one. A small smile touched her lips. When did you become so wise about emotions, Mom? I remember a time when feelings were rather dismissed in our household. Buck up, Victoria. No one likes a complainer. The gentle teasing contained a kernel of truth that I acknowledged with a rueful nod. I've had some time to reconsider many things these past months, including how I responded to your emotional needs growing up. I touched her arm lightly. It's never too late to learn, to change. Even at my age. Even at your age, she agreed, the smile warming. Speaking of which, Michael called this morning. He's considering relocating back to this area. Something about wanting to be closer to family now that the girls need extra support. The news sent a ripple of joy through me. My son, returning after years of geographic separation. My family, gradually reconstituting itself in new configurations, around new understandings and connections. That would be wonderful, I said sincerely. For all of us. Victoria started the car, maneuvering out of the crowded courthouse parking lot with practiced ease. The girls will be ecstatic. They've been begging to visit him in Colorado, but with everything happening, life got complicated. I finished for her. But perhaps it's simplifying again in its way. Sentencing for Marcus and his co-defendants was scheduled for December, a timing that seemed almost poetic in its symmetry. 1 year after that fateful Christmas dinner, after the humiliation that had prompted my spontaneous deception, the final consequences of Marcus's much more significant deceptions would be determined. In the intervening weeks, life settled into new patterns. Victoria and the girls adapted to their reconfigured family structure, to weekends without Marcus, who had been restricted from leaving the state pending sentencing, to the occasional awkward encounters with former friends who didn't know how to relate to them in the aftermath of the trial. Michael made good on his intention to relocate, accepting a position with an environmental consulting firm's regional office and moving into a rental house just 30 minutes from Victoria's home and my condo. His presence added stability, another loving adult for Lily and Rose to rely on, another perspective in our family discussions. We gathered for Thanksgiving at Victoria's house, my first major holiday with both my children and grandchildren in years. As we prepared dinner together, moving around the kitchen in a chaotic but joyful dance of culinary collaboration, I found myself overcome by unexpected emotion. Mom? Are you okay? Michael noticed first, pausing in his potato mashing to study my face with concern. I'm fine, I assured him, wiping at an errant tear. Just grateful. For this moment.
For all of you.
Victoria looked up from the turkey she was carving, her expression softening. It's been quite a year, hasn't it? That, I agreed, is an understatement. After dinner, while Michael entertained the girls with card tricks in the living room, Victoria and I lingered at the table with glasses of wine, reflecting on the journey that had brought us to this point. Do you ever regret it? She asked suddenly. The lottery story? Everything that followed. I considered the question seriously, weighing the pain and disruption against the growth and clarity that had emerged. No, I said finally. I regret that it was necessary, that our relationship had deteriorated to the point where such a drastic measure seemed my only recourse. But I don't regret the truth it ultimately revealed, or the conversations it eventually prompted between us.
Victoria nodded thoughtfully.
I've been thinking about Dad's letter. The one you mentioned finding when you moved. I had shared Richard's final words with her a few months earlier, when the dust from the divorce and trial had begun to settle, when she seemed ready to receive his posthumous insights without being overwhelmed by them. What about it? I asked. His recognition that he had modeled unhealthy relationship patterns, that he had contributed to how I saw myself, how I related to Marcus. She traced the rim of her wineglass absently. I've been wondering what he would think of all this. Of Marcus's conviction, my divorce, our reconciliation. I think he would be proud of your courage, I said softly. Your resilience, your determination to break patterns rather than perpetuate them. And of you, she asked, meeting my gaze. What would he think of your journey this past year? The question touched something deep within me, a desire for approval that had shaped so much of my life, with Richard and beyond. Yet I found myself answering with newfound certainty. I think he would recognize that I finally took his advice, that I discovered who Eleanor truly is when not defined by others' expectations or needs. I smiled, feeling the truth of it resonate through me. And I think he would be glad for both of us, finding our way to more authentic relationships, with each other, with ourselves, with the world. Victoria raised her glass in a quiet toast. To authenticity, then, however messy the path to finding it. To authenticity, I echoed, clinking my glass against hers. And to family, redefined, reconstructed, but stronger for the breaking and rebuilding. Marcus's sentencing hearing fell on December 18th, exactly 1 week before Christmas. Victoria attended alone, her choice a balance between witnessing this final chapter and protecting her daughters from additional trauma during an already difficult season. She returned to my condo afterward, pale but composed, to share the outcome: 6 years in federal prison, significant financial penalties, restitution to defrauded clients. A substantial punishment, though less than the maximum possible under sentencing guidelines, reflecting the judge's consideration of Marcus's lack of prior criminal history and the character references submitted by friends and colleagues. "How do you feel?" I asked as we sat on my balcony, watching winter sunlight sparkle on the river below. "Mostly sad," she admitted. "For the girls who will grow up with their father in prison. For the clients who trusted him with their financial security. For the person I thought I married, who turned out to be someone else entirely." She sighed, wrapping her hands around the mug of tea I'd prepared. "There's no satisfaction in seeing him sentenced, only a sense of closure. An ending that allows for new beginnings. The girls will get through this," I assured her. "With your love, with Michael's and my support, with honest communication about what happened and why." "I know," she nodded. "Children survive all kinds of family disruptions. Mine is hardly the first family touched by incarceration, divorce, public scandal. We'll find our way through." Her resilience, her focus on moving forward rather than dwelling in regret or resentment, filled me with profound admiration. This daughter of mine, who had emerged from crisis stronger, wiser, more authentically herself, she was the true winner in this year's upheaval, though the victory had come at significant cost. "We should discuss Christmas," I ventured, changing the subject to more immediate concerns. "Your house or mine?" Victoria considered. "Yours, I think. The girls are excited about spending Christmas in Grandma's fancy apartment, as they call it. And it might be good to create new traditions in a new space, rather than trying to recreate past holidays in the house they associate with their father." "Perfect," I agreed. "Michael can stay over Christmas Eve. We'll make it festive but different, a fresh start for all of us." And so, 1 year after the Christmas dinner that had changed everything, we gathered in my riverside condo, a smaller, cozier space than Victoria's house, transformed by twinkling lights, evergreen garlands, and the children's handmade decorations. Michael mixed hot chocolate with peppermint schnapps for the adults, plain cocoa with extra marshmallows for the girls. Victoria played carols on her phone, the music a gentle backdrop to our conversation and laughter. As we settled around the table for dinner, I looked at the faces surrounding me. Michael, relaxed and happy to be home. Victoria, still carrying shadows of recent trauma but finding her way toward healing. Lily and Rose, resilient despite their confusion, secure in the knowledge of being deeply loved by the adults in their lives. This was family, not the perfect, polished version presented in holiday cards or social media posts, but the real, messy, complicated connection of people who had hurt each other, failed each other, and ultimately chosen to remain present, to do the difficult work of reconciliation, to build something new from the broken pieces of what came before. As glasses were raised in toast, I found myself reflecting on the journey that had brought us to this moment. A spontaneous lie told in desperate self-defense. A conservatorship petition filed in greedy haste. A divorce. A criminal conviction. So much pain and disruption, yet ultimately leading to this. A Christmas table where authenticity had replaced pretense, where mutual respect had supplanted power struggles, where love endured not despite difficult truths, but because of our willingness to finally speak and hear them. To family, Michael proposed, raising his glass, in all its complicated glory. To truth, Victoria added, meeting my gaze with understanding that required no explanation, however uncomfortable it might sometimes be. To new beginnings, I concluded, my heart full beyond words. And to the wisdom that sometimes comes only through ending what no longer serves us. As our glasses clinked in unanimous agreement, I felt a sense of completion, of coming full circle. 1 year ago, in another house, at another table, I had fabricated a fortune that didn't exist. Today, surrounded by the people I loved most in the world, I recognized the true wealth I possessed, not measured in lottery millions or material success, but in the courage to stand in my truth, the resilience to weather conflict, and the joy of authentic connection that no amount of money could ever buy. That was the greatest win of all, one no one could take away, and one I would never again allow anyone to diminish. The end.